401. Martial Tianhe, the military order. The elite are being attacked. King Hawa Immortal King said to you, ever since you created the King of Rules, the Nine Heavens Immortal Court has been paying attention to you. He is here today on the Nine Heavens Immortal King's orders to invite you to join the Nine Heavens Immortal Court. Firstly, the other party just helped you, and you now indeed need a backer to prevent scoundrels like Nine Palaces Immortal King from harassing you. Therefore, you quickly agreed. Subsequently, King Hawa Immortal King took you to Mozang Heaven to meet the Nine Heavens Immortal King. The Nine Heavens Immortal King is an Emperor Light Immortal King, the strongest open expert in Mozang Heaven, and gives you a full sense of oppression. If your combat power is 600, his is at least 10,000 or more. Positions in the Nine Heavens Immortal Court are allocated based on strength and merit. Although your strength is at the Immortal King level, you have not made any contributions. The Nine Heavens Immortal King then appointed you to the position of Celestial River Grand Marshal, which can be held by a quasi-immortal king, to command 100,000 Celestial River Navy. After receiving the order, you found something was not right. Why does this position sound a bit familiar? It's a bit like Senior Brother's position. However, Senior Brother is the Heavenly Canopy Grand Marshal, and you are the Celestial River Grand Marshal. The two are still very different. At least there's a difference of one character. The Celestial River Grand Marshal is a direct subordinate of the Purple Subtlety Immortal King of the North Pole and the head of the four marshals of the North Pole. So, you went to pay respects to the Purple Subtlety Immortal King again. The Purple Subtlety Immortal King was neither warm nor cold towards you, this airdropped Celestial River Grand Marshal. He only said a few polite words before sending you to your post. His attitude was a world apart from the East Pole King Hawa Immortal King, who invited you to join the Nine Heavens Immortal Court. You guessed it might be due to the Purple Subtlety Immortal King's dissatisfaction with the Nine Heavens Immortal King's forceful placement of personnel. Anyway, you were just looking for a backer, so you didn't care whether the Purple Subtlety Immortal King's attitude was good or bad. After receiving your official seal and uniform, you were led by an immortal servant directly to the Celestial River. As soon as you arrived at the Celestial River, you saw from afar two quasi-immortal kings, dressed in silver-white armor, engaged in a magical duel. For a moment, the Celestial River surged with waves, and the momentum was undeniably grand. There were also many onlookers watching the show. After inquiring, you learned that both of them were deputy marshals of the Celestial River Navy. One was named Yingbu, and the other was named Ganzhong. The two were currently deciding the ownership of the marshal's position through a magical duel. You stepped forward and forcefully separated the two, saying, "Stop fighting. You won't kill anyone like this." Ganzhong and Yingbu glared at you angrily. "Who are you? How dare you meddle in the affairs of our Celestial River Navy?" Their subordinates also surrounded you, intending to take you down. At this moment, you directly took out the Celestial River Grand Marshal's official seal. Ganzhong and Yingbu's expressions instantly turned ugly. The Purple Subtlety Immortal King had just said not long ago that the marshal's position would be chosen from the two of them, so why was an outsider suddenly appointed? Ganzhong and Yingbu snorted coldly and went directly to the Purple Subtlety Immortal Mansion to demand an explanation. The two subordinates looked at each other. Now that the new marshal had arrived, should they bow or not? Some people silently left. They were Ganzhong and Yingbu's confidants. Since their bosses hadn't spoken, they dared not bow haphazardly. The other group had no scruples and directly knelt down in a large crowd. "Greetings, Celestial River Grand Marshal." You secretly noted down those who left. Next, you began to familiarize yourself with the internal affairs of the Celestial River Navy. It wasn't until evening that Deputy Marshals Ganzhong and Yingbu returned from the Purple Subtlety Immortal King. A new official taking office, not being welcomed with a feast, but rather being so neglected, was clearly meant to give you a warning. You had already learned from within the Navy that the two were confidants of the Purple Subtlety Immortal King, and they probably dared to be so arrogant because they had the Purple Subtlety Immortal King's backing. However, you seemed to not take their offense to heart. Instead, you even hosted a banquet to entertain the two. Seeing this, the two couldn't help but look down on you even more. The two had learned from the Purple Subtlety Immortal King that you were an airdropped appointee directly from the Nine Heavens Immortal King. They originally thought you had some ability, but now it seemed you were equally afraid of the Purple Subtlety Immortal King's might. Since that was the case, the two could rest assured and sideline you. However, to their surprise, for a period of time afterward, you invited mid-level generals who were ostracized within the Celestial River Navy every day. The two inwardly disdained this, thinking that all important positions in the Celestial River Navy were under their control, so how much use could it be for you to win over those mid-level generals? Half a month later, a water demon rebellion suddenly broke out in the lower reaches of the Celestial River. In the past, such matters could be handled by a simple order from the two of them. Now that you were the Celestial River Grand Marshal, the two still informed you. The result was as expected by the two of them. You were engrossed in drinking and revelry, telling them to handle it as they saw fit. Then, Ying Bu snatched this task. After all, suppressing a rebellion not only earns Immortal Court merit but also allows one to seize benefits, making it a lucrative assignment. Initially, everyone thought this was an ordinary water demon rebellion. Unexpectedly, the 8,000 Navy troops sent by Ying Bu were routed by that group of water demons, losing their armor and suffering over half casualties, causing Ying Bu to lose much face. The Celestial River Navy had a total of only 100,000 troops, and losing 4,000 or 5,000 at once was not a small number. You called Ying Bu over and, in front of everyone, severely reprimanded him, asking him what he was doing and if he could still serve as a deputy marshal. After being reprimanded in person, Ying Bu's anger surged, and he immediately stiffened his neck and said that he was willing to personally lead the troops. If he could not quell the demon calamity within half a month, he would resign from his position as deputy marshal. Seeing this, you took out the military pledge you had already prepared and had him sign his name. Ying Bu was stunned, but he didn't think he would lose, so he signed the military pledge. Subsequently, Ying Bu led 10,000 elite troops and personally took command of the expedition. Upon reaching the battlefield, he even shouted to the troublesome water demon leader, telling him to surrender. However, the other party spat and disdainfully said, "What's so great about elites? I'm here to fight elites." A flash of anger crossed Ying Bu's face, and he immediately ordered the entire army to attack, vowing to annihilate the enemy within 3 days. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. Half a month flew by in a flash. Not only did Ying Bu fail to quell the water demon rebellion, but he also allowed its momentum to grow fiercer, harming tens of millions of common people along the coast. Even the 9 Heavens Immortal King sent an inquiry. As soon as the half-month period was up, you immediately sent people to bring Ying Bu back, stripped him of his armor, and removed him from his position as deputy marshal. Ying Bu shouted that he was unconvinced, saying that the leader of that group of water demons, who appeared out of nowhere, was several times stronger than him and simply not someone he could handle. 402. Mastering Military Power, the Great Dream Tao Sutra. Jubaozhuang. Ganzhong also pleaded for Ying Bu. Although the two of them had been vying for the marshal position before, they were ultimately both Purple Subtlety Immortal King's trusted aides. Facing you, an outsider who was parachuted in, they would certainly unite to deal with the external threat. However, you did not give Ganzhong face and insisted on dismissing Ying Bu. In a fit of qi, Ganzhong declared that if Ying Bu was dismissed, he, as the deputy marshal, would also resign. He thought you would back down because of this. After all, losing 2 quasi-immortal king deputy marshals at once would leave you with no one to use. Unexpectedly, you clapped your hands and laughed, "Good, good, good. It's a deal, double happiness." Ganzhong was stunned. He exchanged glances with Ying Bu and had no choice but to seek out Purple Subtlety Immortal King. Purple Subtlety Immortal King soon brought the two of them to the marshal's mansion, hoping you would retract your order. However, you were only willing to reinstate Gan Yang's official position, but Ying Bu had already made a military pledge, and military orders were like mountains, you could not retract it. Purple Subtlety Immortal King had no choice but to take Ying Bu away. At this point, in the Celestial River Navy, only Ganzhong remained as the conspicuous one. You asked Ganzhong if he was willing to deal with the water demons. With Ying Bu's previous lesson, Ganzhong would rather break one of his legs than go quell the rebellion. You were not surprised by this and had him guard the main camp, while you personally led Ying Bu's original troops to resolve the demonic rebellion. You were gone for only 10 days, and with the force of an autumn wind sweeping fallen leaves, you quelled the water demon rebellion, initially establishing your authority within the Celestial River Navy. However, the quasi-immortal king water demon leader that suddenly appeared was indeed formidable, killing many of your subordinate generals in battle. Most of them were Ying Bu's trusted aides. You didn't know why it was precisely this group of people who died, perhaps they were just unlucky. After slaughtering Ying Bu's remaining mid to high level corps, the water demon leader fled, disappearing without a trace, not even leaving a name. It had the demeanor of doing good deeds without leaving a name. After the great victory, 9 Heavens Immortal King sent people to commend you. Seeing you, glorious in the crowd, Ying Bu thought of his deceased subordinates, and his heart was so depressed he felt like spitting blood. He found Purple Subtlety Immortal King again, unwillingly saying, "My lord, the Celestial River Navy is your long-standing painstaking effort. Are you just going to hand it over like this?" Purple Subtlety Immortal King, however, said indifferently, "Don't worry, he won't be glorious for long. I will give you a chance for revenge." Ying Bu was overjoyed at these words and took his leave. After Ying Bu left, Purple Subtlety Immortal King murmured, "In a few years, the show will begin." Celestial River Navy Mansion. Ever since Ying Bu and his faction were cleared out, you promoted a group of people who had been previously marginalized, thus initially gaining control of nearly half of the Celestial River Navy's military power, unlike the previous situation where you were sidelined. As for Ganzhong, he had always been very obedient, at least not daring to openly feign compliance. You, the Celestial River Grand Marshal, finally looked somewhat like a marshal. You decided not to make any moves on Ganyang's side for now. You had only been in office for less than 3 months. If deputy marshals kept having problems in such a short time, even an idiot would see something was wrong. You had initially established yourself in the 9 Heavens Immortal Court, and next, you planned to collect more profound mind cultivation techniques for your main body. The 9 Heavens Immortal Court had a mind cultivation technique called the Great Dream Tao Scripture. This technique was created by the Great Dream Immortal King of the 5th Heaven and allowed people to experience thousands of reincarnations in their dreams, tasting all aspects of life, thereby rapidly improving their mental cultivation. However, obtaining this technique required a massive amount of contribution points. You had rendered no small service to the 9 Heavens Immortal Court by quelling the Water Demon Rebellion, but to exchange for the Great Dream Tao Scripture, the contribution points would need to be at least dozens of times more. It would be difficult to obtain so many contribution points in a short time. But who said you had to use your own contribution points to exchange for it? Contribution points in the 9 Heavens Immortal Court were allowed to be traded. As the Celestial River Grand Marshal, it was quite reasonable to borrow some contribution points from your subordinates, wasn't it? However, directly borrowing would mean you owed favors to the entire army. Not only would you have to repay the contribution points later, but also the favors, which would be quite troublesome. Was there a way to borrow without repaying, and have others eagerly give them to you? Soon, you had an idea. A shop called Jubao Bank was soon established in the Marshal's mansion. Jubao Bank only did one type of business. It specialized in collecting contribution points and paying regular interest. As for the owner of Jubao Bank, it was not you, but a confidant of Ganzhong. Of course, this person had already been secretly replaced by another of your Tao bodies, which could both shift responsibility and collect contribution points from Ganyang's side. As soon as Jubao Bank opened, Ganzhong found his confidant, and angrily said, "Gao He, you fool, you're crazy to do such business. If the marshal investigates, you'll be dead." Gao He smiled mysteriously and said, "My lord, don't worry. I've already cleared things with the marshal. As long as I regularly pay my respects to him, he won't say much." Ganzhong finally breathed a sigh of relief, then wondered, can this thing really make money? There were many banks in the 9 Heavens Immortal Court, but not only did depositing money not yield interest, but one also had to pay a certain fee to the bank. Jubao Bank collected contribution points, which were more valuable than immortal jade. Where would the extra contribution points come from to pay interest? Gao He patted his chest and guaranteed that he had his own channels and asked Ganzhong to rest assured. If Ganzhong deposited contribution points, the interest he would give would be double that of others. Ganzhong deposited a small sum of contribution points, half believing, half doubting. Gao He immediately went around the army promoting that the deputy marshal had deposited contribution points with him. With Ganzhong taking the lead, for a time, many of Ganyang's trusted aides deposited their contribution points into Jubao Bank. After all, they were all brothers, and their boss had vouched for it. There was no way he would trick them, right? In just a few days, the money collected by Jubao Bank was more than the contribution points you, the Celestial River Grand Marshal, had in your hands. And this was only a small portion of people's contribution points. Most people were still observing. A month passed in a flash. Jubao Bank began to distribute interest to the many generals who had deposited contribution points. These were actually all their principal. But seeing real benefits, who wouldn't be envious? Instantly, another large group of Celestial River Navy generals deposited contribution points into Jubao Bank. After several months of this repetition, Jubao Bank's reputation was thoroughly established in the Celestial River Navy. When you, the Celestial River Grand Marshal, also deposited money into it, it pushed the popularity to a new climax. Most of the Celestial River Navy generals began to deposit their idle contribution points into Jubao Bank. They even widely invited their relatives and friends, creating a lot of extra income for Jubao Bank. Thus, with everyone's enthusiasm and Jubao Bank's honest operation, the contribution points you needed to exchange for the Great Dream Tao scripture were quickly gathered. 403. Massive Wealth, the State of Sitting and Forgetting. Sun Wukong, the Script of Journey to the West. Although you had contribution points, you couldn't use them privately. Otherwise, this massive amount of contribution points would be of unknown origin, and it would be easy for those with ulterior motives to trace your connection to Jubao Bank. Besides, you never intended to scam your brothers out of their money. After all, it wasn't easy for your brothers to earn money, and you wouldn't do something so heinous. Jubao Bank offers both deposit and loan services, so you could just openly apply for a loan. Soon, you borrowed most of Jubao Bank's contribution points. As for the repayment period, it was 10,000 years. Some Celestial River Navy soldiers questioned, if you couldn't repay it, wouldn't their principal be lost? Regarding everyone's concerns, you guaranteed in the name of the Nine Heavens Immortal Court and as the Celestial River Grand Marshal that you would repay this loan within 10,000 years. Jubao Bank's owner, Gao He, also came out to smooth things over, saying, this is a good thing. Only by lending out money can Jubao Bank pay everyone's interest. He continued, besides, the Celestial River Grand Marshal is a key official of the Nine Heavens Immortal Court, he wouldn't possibly scam everyone. He added, even if, by some remote chance, the Celestial River Grand Marshal were to flee or for some other reason couldn't repay, the Nine Heavens Immortal Court would back it up. He concluded, there's no way the Nine Heavens Immortal Court would be gone within 10,000 years, right? So, please rest assured, this loan is very safe. Upon hearing this, everyone finally relaxed. After obtaining this enormous sum, you went directly to the Nine Heavens Immortal Court headquarters and exchanged it for the Great Dream Tao scripture. You used one of its methods, the One Dream Reincarnation, and your spiritual cultivation significantly surged. Originally, you estimated that even with 100-fold time acceleration, it would take you several years to complete the cultivation of the fourth realm true observation. Now, it would only take 1 month. 1 month later, your spiritual realm successfully reached the true observation realm. Every thought in your mind and the origin of each thought could not escape your perception. Before cultivating your mind, you could control everything in your physical body, but it was difficult to control the changes in your own thoughts. After cultivating your mind, you could gradually control even the arising and ceasing of your own thoughts, a feeling that was undoubtedly very wondrous. Now, you had the confidence to lucidly spend hundreds of thousands of years in the darkness, but there was still a considerable gap to 100 million years. Afterward, you continued to cultivate the Great Dream Tao scripture. Meanwhile, the Celestial River Navy of the Nine Heavens Immortal Court was gradually brought under stronger control through various methods employed by your Tao body. At 25 years old, you successfully achieved a breakthrough into the sitting forgetfulness realm. This was a realm of transcending material things, where both self and objects were forgotten. In this state, your cultivation speed and combat power saw a slight increase. Of course, the biggest change was certainly in your state of mind. Now, you felt capable of spending millions of years in the dark space without any abnormalities occurring. In terms of mental cultivation, you were considered among the most formidable among immortal lords. At 26 years old, after several years of word of mouth, Jubao Bank's business grew larger and larger. Many people from other departments of the Nine Heavens Immortal Court came to deposit or borrow money, drawn by its reputation. Even many clever individuals had begun to imitate Jubao Bank, opening a large number of similar establishments, though their scale could certainly not compare to Jubao Bank in the short term. At 27 years old, in the eastern continent of the Nine Heavens Immortal Court, a monkey Yao, who called himself the Beautiful Monkey King, led 36 Yao Kings in a mass rebellion. Due to its immense momentum, it caused no small stir in the Nine Heavens Immortal Court. Even your Tao body's Celestial River Navy, far from the eastern continent, heard many related reports. The most widely spread among them was naturally the origin of that monkey Yao. He seemed to be in essence formed from a divine stone that mended the heavens, possessing immortal lord combat power upon birth, and somehow learned 72 transformations, enabling him to contend with ordinary immortal kings with the strength of a quasi-immortal king. And those 36 Yao kings were great Yao from various parts of Mozang heaven, each a top-tier immortal lord. As expected, the 9 heavens immortal court soon suffered heavy losses, and even the immortal soldiers and immortal generals dispatched returned empty-handed multiple times. At this point, someone suggested, since that monkey was formidable, why not recruit him and give him an official position? The 9 heavens immortal king thought this was a good idea, so he sent an immortal envoy to persuade him to surrender. Unexpectedly, the beautiful monkey king spoke with great arrogance, demanding to be the equal to heaven immortal king, and asking the 9 heavens immortal king to add a 5th emissary beyond the 4 emissaries, stating that he and his brothers wanted to become the 5th emissary, thereby governing all of the Yao race in Mozang heaven. The 9 heavens immortal king clearly could not agree to this condition. However, he offered a compromise, to let this beautiful monkey king first serve as an official in the immortal court for a period, and if he performed well, his conditions might not be out of the question. Under the persuasion of several Yao kings, the beautiful monkey king finally agreed to the 9 heavens immortal king's offer, coming to the 9 heavens immortal court to take up a post, where he was appointed by Ma Wen, managing the imperial horse supervisor. Although the official position was small, the monkey was determined to achieve something significant, to secure a bright future for his brothers in the 9 heavens immortal court. As you watched the progression of this event, dormant memories began to assault you. This isn't right. This monkey is taking on the Sun Wukong script, isn't he? This monkey Yao called himself the beautiful monkey king, his true name was rarely known. Your Dao body even made a special trip to the imperial horse supervisor, and after meeting the beautiful monkey king, you first offered good wine to entertain him. When you had drunk to your heart's content, you asked him if his name was Sun Wukong. The beautiful monkey king was somewhat surprised, saying that this name was given by his master and only known by those within his sect. He had never used this name since leaving his master's tutelage, so how did you know? You fabricated a story, claiming that a distant relative of yours was also from his sect. Upon hearing this, Sun Wukong felt even closer to you. However, he cautioned you, saying that his master had told him not to reveal his apprenticeship experience, and asked you to keep it a secret and not spread it. You naturally nodded in agreement, but returned with a solemn expression. Mozang heaven isn't the journey to the West world, it's impossible for there to be so many coincidences. You felt an indescribable strangeness about all of this. And you were now the Celestial River Grand Marshal. The 9 heavens immortal court didn't have a Marshal Tianpeng. If things truly followed the journey to the West script, wouldn't you become the second senior brother? No, absolutely not. You didn't want to reincarnate into a pig Yao. Connecting this to the previously encountered people like Jian, Zhenti, Laozi, Rahu, Shakyamuni, Wu Tian demon ancestor, etc., you suddenly felt a deep chill. Perhaps you should have realized something much earlier. It was only Sun Wukong's famous name that finally made you alert. All of this, could it be related to the true nature of the world? You once again thought of the ancient god witch, Wu Xuan. What was the secret about him that caused Rahu Immortal King to defect to another domain? 404. The Immortal Palace, the state of selflessness. Emperor Ruins, the prehistoric domain. At this time, Wu Xuan was still sealed in the Godfall Sea of the Chaotic Sea, and was soon found by your Dao body. You discovered that the restriction in his mind was unusually profound, not like something left by an ordinary immortal king, but rather like something left by a supreme immortal king. This guy's father is actually a rare supreme immortal king. It's just unknown if he's dead or not. If not, why would Wu Xuan have fallen to such a state? The restriction left by a supreme immortal king is not something you can undo now. If you forcefully break it, it will only cause Wu Xuan's soul flying away and spirit scattering. In that case, you also wouldn't be able to obtain his memories. Since Luohu Immortal King in the previous simulation could easily undo the restriction, he must at least be a supreme immortal king. Since you couldn't violently search his soul, you directly questioned Wu Xuan. Wu Xuan said that as long as you release him, everything can be discussed. You said releasing him was fine, but he had to tell you in advance which force in the 9 heavens and 10 earths sealed him, as you didn't want to offend a behemoth for no reason. Wu Xuan was silent for a moment, then said, "It's someone from the Immortal Reverence Hall." The Immortal Reverence Hall maintains the operational order of the 9 heavens and 10 earths, anyone who knows the true nature of the world will be regarded as an anomaly by them, either sealed or annihilated. If you obtain all the truth from me, you will inevitably be targeted by the Immortal Reverence Hall. In comparison, releasing me is a minor matter. As long as you are unaware, the Immortal Reverence Hall will not attack you. So, are you truly prepared to face the truth? You were also silent after hearing this. Good heavens, it has a bit of that ultimate boss feel to it. You can't even defeat a supreme immortal king now. If you're targeted by the Immortal Reverence, the outcome is imaginable. Wu Xuan seemed to have seen your dilemma, and finally sighed, saying, if you truly want to know the truth, you can go to the Emperor Ruins. There, you can find some clues. Emperor Ruins. You were startled at the words. You had heard of that place. It was originally an extremely powerful dimension in the foreign realm, but during the immortal ancient period billions of years ago, it was reduced to ruins due to a major war with the Nine Heavens. That place has now become a forbidden zone, countless times more dangerous than the ancient ruin in the 10 Directions land. Even an immortal king is prone to danger if he goes there. In comparison, you felt it was more reliable to obtain information from Wu Xuan. When you're a person, you can't just suffer for nothing. Although you don't want to bear the karma of the Immortal Reverence Hall, you can let others bear it. After all, the world is never short of curious people. You think Sun Wukong is very suitable. His name and identity must have great luck protecting him. You believe he will be able to bear it. Most importantly, his origin is a mystery, and it's unknown if he's related to the truth of the world. If you can get an answer from Wu Xuan, it would solve a major doubt of yours. Your Tao body erased all his qi, left the undersea dragon palace where Wu Xuan was sealed, and returned to Mozang heaven. Time passed slowly, and another year went by. With the help of the great Dream Tao scripture, your mental realm finally entered the 6th realm of the realm of selflessness. This realm is what is often referred to in Buddhism as no self, no person, no sentient being, and no lifespan. Upon reaching the realm of selflessness, all evils are dispelled, and heart demons do not arise. Any means of obscuring the mind will have little effect on you. Even most immortal kings have not reached this mental realm. At least among the nearly 10 immortal kings in the 9 Heavens Immortal Court, besides the 9 Heavens Immortal King, you have never heard of anyone else reaching this realm. And the 9 Heavens Immortal King has lived for over 1 billion years, experiencing countless major and minor calamities. It can be said that he reached this mental realm through the accumulation of time. Even the creator of the Great Dream Tao scripture, Great Dream Immortal King, probably couldn't imagine the Great Dream Tao scripture having such miraculous effects. Of course, during the cultivation process, the greatest contributor was definitely your infinite enlightenment talent. It allowed you to gain more from one dream reincarnation than others could from hundreds or thousands of reincarnations. Coupled with the 100-fold time flow rate, this allowed you to make such rapid progress. At this time, you already had some confidence in passing the fearless tribulation. However, since you didn't have absolute confidence, you continued to cultivate, striving to also bring out the manifestation realm. This realm is difficult for even an immortal king to reach. You wonder what changes will occur upon reaching it. On the other side, Sun Wukong, as usual, was galloping with the heavenly horses of the Imperial Horse Supervisor when he suddenly found a jade slip by a riverbank, seemingly washed ashore by the river. He curiously picked it up and scanned it with his immortal consciousness, discovering that it contained a story titled, Journey to the West. The protagonist inside was also named Sun Wukong, and even his previous experiences were exactly the same as his, especially the detailed and perfectly accurate experience of learning arts at Mount Fangkun. Could it be a fellow senior brother playing a trick on old Sun? But many of the experiences within, especially the matter of ancestral Master Bodhi teaching him Dharma in the middle of the night, he had never told anyone. His senior brothers should not know either. Then why was it recorded? Sun Wukong felt a chill run down his spine, but he patiently continued to read. When he read about himself being bullied in the 9 Heavens Immortal Court and angrily wreaking havoc in the Immortal Court, the coldness immediately vanished and he couldn't help but clap and cheer. Just as he occupied the Lingxiao Palace, and the 9 Heavens Immortal King anxiously sent someone to invite the Western Paradise Buddha, the story abruptly stopped, with no further chapters. What was the outcome? Did he drive away that old man of the 9 Heavens? Sun Wukong scratched his ears and cheeks in frustration. But the ending only contained this one sentence. To know what happens next, please go to the Undersea Dragon Palace in the 10 Directions land and find the ancient god witch Wu Xuan. The jade slip even contained a map, clearly marking the location of the Undersea Dragon Palace. Good, good, good. So this guy named Wu Xuan is behind all this mischief, right? Sun Wukong was so angry that his teeth itched. He immediately sent the heavenly horses back to the Imperial Horse Supervisor, then quietly left Mozang Heaven and headed for the 10 Directions land. Soon, Wu Xuan's seal formation in the Undersea Dragon Palace was smashed by an iron rod. A monkey with a thunder god-like face grabbed his collar and urgently asked, "Quickly tell old Sun, what happened after the havoc in heaven? Who won between me and that Western Paradise Buddha?" Wu Xuan looked bewildered. What havoc in heaven? What Western Paradise Buddha? He didn't know. Sun Wukong directly threw the jade slip he had found onto his face. After reading it, Wu Xuan recalled the mysterious person who had previously wanted to know the truth from him, and instantly understood what was going on. He looked at the monkey with pity and said, "The jade slip says your name is Sun Wukong. I generally know who you are. You are the great sage equal to heaven of the primordial domain." Sun Wukong felt this name was unusually familiar, but he curiously asked, "Great sage, isn't that a thing from the lower realm? What old Sun wants to be is the immortal king equal to heaven." Wu Xuan said, "This great sage is not that great sage. In the primordial domain, only the most supreme among demons are qualified to be called great sage." Sun Wukong scratched the back of his hand and grinned, saying, "Hearing it like that, the title of great sage equal to heaven isn't bad. But, what is this primordial domain you speak of?" Wu Xuan sighed. "This is an extremely ancient name. Now, people in the 9 heavens and 10 earths and the foreign realm all call it the Emperor Ruins." 405. The Mysterious Immortal King, reenacting Journey to the West. The monkey is fully enlightened. Emperor Ruins. Sun Wukong was startled. That place was a desolate region in a state of destruction, where even an immortal king dared not easily set foot. This guy, who was only at the supreme immortal realm, actually claimed that he, Sun Wukong, came from that place. Wu Xuan saw through the monkey's thoughts and said, "That place used to be an extremely powerful dimension, with immortal kings emerging in endless succession, and even several powerhouses above the immortal king realm." The monkey asked curiously, "If it was truly as powerful as you say, why did it become a dead realm?" Wu Xuan sighed again. "This is related to the origins of the 9 heavens and 10 earths and the foreign realm. Back Thena." Wu Xuan continued to speak to himself, but to Sun Wukong's ears, it was a blur of unfamiliar language, completely incomprehensible. Just then, a majestic voice suddenly rang out, "How dare you speak ill of an immortal venerable? You're courting death." Wu Xuan screamed and was instantly reduced to ashes. This time not even a seal was left. When the owner of the mysterious voice was about to strike Sun Wukong down, he let out a surprised, "Eh." Subsequently, Sun Wukong's vision went black, and he fainted. No one noticed that the jade slip in his hand dimmed, and all its contents vanished. On the other side, your true body in the Chongsheng world opened its eyes. You had always had a trace of spiritual power attached to the jade slip. As long as one's spiritual realm did not surpass yours, it would be difficult to detect the spiritual power you left behind. Naturally, you heard the entire conversation between Wu Xuan and Sun Wukong. However, Wu Xuan's last few sentences seemed to have touched upon some taboo and were obscured by a mysterious power. Combining this with what the mysterious voice said later, you could roughly deduce that Wu Xuan must have mentioned the name of a certain immortal venerable. There was a high probability that it was the immortal venerable behind the immortal reverence hall. Also, Wu Xuan mentioned the Emperor Ruins, which was the primordial domain before its destruction, and he could even call out great sage equal to heaven. It seems this primordial domain is most likely the primordial you were familiar with in your previous life, and the journey to the west should have also happened there. So what is happening in Mozang Heaven now? Is someone trying to reenact the journey to the west? You felt that this possibility was not small. Mozang is a Buddhist term. For the 3rd heaven to be named Mozang, doesn't that imply that Buddhism is the mainstream of Mozang Heaven? Yet now, the primary power in Mozang Heaven is the 9 heavens immortal court, with Little Western Heaven only ranking 2nd. It seems reasonable for Buddhism to rise again through the journey to the west. After all, this matter could be copied from the primordial domain's playbook. With low risk and high reward, there's no reason not to do it. It's just unknown what chips Little Western Heaven offered to make the 9 heavens immortal court play such a grand show with it. However, no matter what deal they have behind the scenes, the situation is unfavorable to you. Why? Because you are the Celestial River Grand Marshal. This position is the predetermined 2nd senior brother. The suffering of the second senior brother is well known, and you do not want to repeat it. Originally, you thought that the Nine Heavens Immortal King arranged for you to be the Celestial River Grand Marshal because he valued you. Now it seems this guy's intentions are likely impure, he's courting death. Now you either resign or transfer. In any case, you don't want to be the Celestial River Grand Marshal for another moment. However, you still need to find an old acquaintance, and that is Sun Wukong. As the pillar of the journey to obtain scriptures, if he died, it would be a huge mess. It just depends on whether that mysterious person, who is at least an emperor like Immortal King, will show mercy. Your Dao body in Mozang Heaven soon arrived at the Imperial Horse Supervisor, where you saw the monkey looking as if he had just woken up, walking out of his residence. You asked him what he had been doing for the past 2 days, and Sun Wukong looked bewildered, saying he seemed to have slept for 2 days and hadn't done anything. You knew the monkey's memory had been wiped, so you casually exchanged a few pleasantries with him before leaving. Afterward, you went to visit the Nine Heavens Immortal King, stating that you were at odds with the Purple Subtlety Immortal King and did not wish to work under him, requesting to resign or be transferred to another position. The Nine Heavens Immortal King, however, advised, "Currently, I have no suitable person to replace you. How about this? You endure for another 100 years, and after 100 years, I will arrange a good position for you. Endure for another 100 years. Endure for another 100 years, and you'll be reincarnated as a pig." His good position refers to being Pig King, right? You grumbled inwardly, greeting the Nine Heavens Immortal King's ancestors for 18 generations. Now you finally understood. This was aimed at you. Perhaps the great powers of the Immortal Court and Buddhism had already reserved the position of second senior brother for you. You could also roughly guess why both sides would do this. Once you died, the 10,000 laws rule could find a new master, and the luck on your body could transfer to Buddhism, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Since the other party was so confident, turning hostile now was clearly unwise. You received your orders from the Nine Heavens Immortal King and withdrew, returning to ponder new countermeasures. Under the absolute disparity in strength, you realized there were only 2 things you could do. One was to improve your strength, and the other was to buy time. Buying time was also to give you more time to improve your strength. How to buy time still had to start with Sun Wukong. As long as his havoc in the Heavenly Palace was delayed, everything else should be postponed, right? Anyway, from previous experiences, as long as he didn't come into contact with matters related to the immortal Venerable, no accidents would occur. So, a few days later, while herding horses, Sun Wukong obtained another jade slip. Inside was still the story of Journey to the West. However, this time it was not only a complete version, but you had also added many of your own private additions. After Sun Wukong finished reading, he felt a huge web of conspiracy closing in on him, and he was like the biggest chess piece and sacrifice within it. I, old Sun, will never go with that bald donkey to obtain any damn scriptures. After Sun Wukong finished reading, he gnashed his teeth in anger. Especially that guy named Tang Sanzong, who always liked to pretend to be a saint, and would yell for Wukong's help whenever he encountered danger. After being rescued, not only did he not show gratitude, but he would also give him a tightening fillet spell. He was a complete lunatic. Sun Wukong felt that going on a pilgrimage with such a person was worse than smashing his head against a stone pillar in the Imperial Horse Supervisor. Everything started because of the havoc in the Heavenly Palace. As long as I, old Sun, don't cause havoc in the Heavenly Palace, then the Western Paradise Buddha will have no reason to suppress me, and I won't have to suffer that bald donkey temper. Sun Wukong finally understood. He decided to be cautious in the future and never allow himself to be used as a pawn. However, according to the records of Journey to the West, the Celestial River Grand Marshal also seems to have a rather miserable fate. Should I, old Sun, go and warn him? 406. The state of the manifestation of the saint, the second level of the immortal monarch. The dangerous shore, the dimension of the Mingwang. Sun Wukong thought for a moment and decided to tell him about Journey to the West. After all, Celestial River Grand Marshal was his best brother in the Nine Heavens Immortal Court. He had been unconscious for 2 days, and Celestial River Grand Marshal had continuously come to visit him. It would be too unkind to hide it from him. Afterward, Sun Wukong took the jade slip recording Journey to the West and found you. After reading it, you were greatly shocked. Then, you spoke of the various strange things you encountered after joining the Nine Heavens Immortal Court, to reinforce Sun Wukong's mental imprint and never to wreak havoc in the heavenly palace. However, Sun Wukong was only a few hundred years old, and his personality was still too impetuous. To give him an extra layer of insurance, you even specifically imparted to him the cultivation method of the Tao of Mind, to reduce the probability of him being provoked. Sun Wukong also understood that this matter concerned his future, and he did not want to be suppressed under the Five Fingers Mountain for 500 years. After returning, he also began to cultivate diligently. Time passed day by day. 3 years later, you finally achieved a breakthrough to the manifestation realm. Your mind was brilliant and immortal, seeing through all illusions and deceptions. Behind you, a halo even gathered into a wheel, illuminating the great world. This was the light of mind, possessing unparalleled power. Even if you were now just a mortal with no power, you could achieve immortal ascension on the spot with the powerful light of mind. This was the highest realm of mind cultivation, a manifestation. Without any energy, the mind could interfere with matter, permeate various dimensions, and neither reincarnation nor the destruction of the immortal domain could affect your mental will. An aura of great freedom, great liberation, and great ease emanated from you. You felt a sense of perfection and flawlessness in your heart. Is this the manifestation realm? It's truly miraculous. You praised inwardly. Not reaching this realm, one simply couldn't understand its profundity. Now, you could utilize every bit of power to its extreme. Not to mention a dozen-fold increase in strength, the most important thing was that you also gained the ability of mental immortality. Although you had not yet fought against Emperor Light Immortal King, you could be certain that no one among the immortal kings could completely kill you. Reaching the manifestation realm and enduring 100 million years of darkness was simply too easy for you. Let alone 100 million years, even 1 billion years or 10 billion years could not shake your mind. The only trouble was that this time was too long. Even with 100-fold acceleration, it would still be 1,000,000 years. However, the immortal domain heavenly Tao did not state whether this time was the time felt by the mind or the external time. You planned to try mental time first. If it didn't work, then you would just have to endure the external time. You performed the great dream Tao scripture and instantly entered a pitch-black dream. 100 million years passed in the blink of an eye here. When you opened your eyes again, you found yourself already on the path of fearlessness. You had achieved a breakthrough to Immortal Lord's second stage, and the 10,000 Laws rule underwent a transformation, greatly increasing your strength. The strength gained this time, combined with the manifestation realm's power, brought your overall strength to the threshold of a supreme immortal king. An immortal lord at the second stage possessing such strength was simply unprecedented. It was time to settle the score with 9 Palaces Immortal King. 9 Palaces Immortal King resided year-round in the 4th of the 9 heavens, a dangerous shore heaven. Dangerous shore heaven was an extremely special dimension. Because it was not like dimensions such as 10 directions land or Yuan Jing heaven, existing independently, but rather connected to many other dimensional worlds. Therefore, in dangerous shore heaven, not only could one find powerhouses from the 9 heavens, but also occasionally encounter powerhouses from other dimensions, and even foreign powerhouses. Dangerous shore heaven was a mixed bag, and due to the extremely harsh environment, many people did not have a fixed residence. Finding 9 Palaces Immortal King would indeed require some effort. To ensure nothing went wrong and to leave 9 Palaces Immortal King no chance of survival, you even sent out all 3 Tao bodies. This person who slandered you as someone who would bring chaos to the immortal domain must die. Your Tao body directly broke through the dimensional barrier via mental will and entered dangerous shore heaven. Within dangerous shore heaven, there was an endless ocean with no land whatsoever. Your Tao body could clearly see that any single wave was a shattered world, a terrifying sight. If one fell into it, who knew which world they would enter? And behind these endless waves, how many dimensional worlds were there? Just thinking about it made one's scalp tingle. No wonder some people called this boundless sea in dangerous shore heaven the boundary sea. However, most of these dimensional worlds were weaker than 10 directions land, where a grand unity golden immortal was enough to be revered. Only a very few dimensions could give birth to immortal lords and immortal kings above the supreme immortal. The 9 heavens and 10 earths and the foreign lands loved nothing more than conscripting soldiers from these weaker dimensions. The 9 heavens immortal courts organized golden immortal legions and ancestor immortal legions were obtained from the boundary sea. Even King Hawa Immortal King, who initially invited you to join the 9 heavens immortal court, came from a powerful great world within the boundary sea. Of course, Mozang Heaven had limited resources and did not recruit many powerhouses. It was said that the other layers above Dangerous Shore Heaven were where true powerhouses gathered, and giants were everywhere. Nine Palaces Immortal King was just an ordinary immortal king. In terms of strength, he was not prominent in Dangerous Shore Heaven. However, his self-created Nine Palaces divine law was best at divining fortune and misfortune. He used this to trade for cultivation resources. In terms of fame, he was even more renowned than some supreme immortal kings. Your three Tao bodies wandered in Dangerous Shore Heaven for over half a year and befriended more than a dozen immortal kings, one of whom happened to know Nine Palaces Immortal King. You joyfully said, "I have long heard of Diviner Nine Palaces Immortal King's reputation. I hope you can introduce me." That immortal king, however, shook his head and said, "You are a few days late. Nine Palaces Immortal King has already followed Kanjiang Celestial King to the Ming King dimension for an adventure. I don't know when he will return. Although you were a little disappointed, you thought that since you had come all this way, you couldn't give up halfway. So you asked for the location of the Ming King dimension. After obtaining its coordinates, you bid farewell and left. Dangerous Shore Heaven was far larger and more dangerous than Mozang Heaven. It took your three Tao bodies a full dozen days to reach the location of the Ming King dimension. Upon entering, you found that the Ming King dimension was a world about the same size as Golden Hall Heaven. This world had only one power, which was the Ming King Divine Court. The Ming King Divine Court followed the Divine Tao system. All living beings in this world had to believe in the Ming King Divine Court's supreme ruler Mingxian. Mingxian's strength in the Ming King dimension was overwhelmingly powerful, comparable to a supreme immortal king. Yet, under his command, not a single powerhouse at the Immortal Lord level could be found. It could be said that the resources of an entire world supported one person. Mingxian had managed his stronghold like an iron barrel. You wondered what purpose Kanjiang Celestial King had in bringing Nine Palaces Immortal King here. 407. The Innate Wonders, the List of Gods. Seeking benefits for the brothers, the Reincarnation Seal. After your Tao body entered the Ming King dimension, it didn't find any signs of a major battle. It is said that Mingxian is extremely xenophobic, forbidding anyone from seizing his power of faith. Kanjiang Celestial King and Nine Palaces Immortal King couldn't possibly be his old friends coming to reminisce, could they? One of your Tao bodies went to the headquarters of the Ming King Divine Court and swept every corner with its powerful mental will, but found no trace of the two. Only Mingxian was cultivating alone. Because your mental will was at too high a level, Mingxian was not disturbed by you. Since they are not with Mingxian, it seems they have most likely gone into hiding. Although the Ming King dimension is vast, with the strength of your three Tao bodies, it would take less than a month to search every corner. Let's see where else they can hide. Half a month later, one of your Tao bodies finally discovered their tracks in the vast mountain range in the southeast of the Ming King dimension. The two were in an ancient place, deciphering a formation composed of 36 ancient wells. The formation seemed very old, containing many ancient runes from the immortal ancient era. Your Tao body hid in the dark, silently notifying the other two Tao bodies to come. When the formation was mostly deciphered, gray-white ancient flames continuously rose from the 36 ancient wells. Roars came from beneath each ancient well. Soon, a white-clad ancient corpse with disheveled hair crawled out of each well. Moreover, each ancient corpse had the strength of a quasi-immortal king. Kanjiang Celestial King and Nine Palaces Immortal King had to use most of their strength to suppress the formation, and the remaining strength to deal with the ancient corpses, which took quite a bit of effort. After the two dealt with the 36 quasi-immortal king ancient corpses, it took another half a day to completely break the ancient formation. Below the formation was a greenish-blue box. Nine Palaces Immortal King showed a look of joy and said to Kanjiang Celestial King, "This should be it." Just as the two were about to take the greenish-blue box, three powerful auras suddenly erupted and attacked them. The two were forced to defend, and the greenish-blue box fell into the hands of a black-robed figure. "How dare you!" Kanjiang Celestial King's expression changed drastically. He had prepared for so long and even spent a great price to invite Nine Palaces Immortal King to calculate the location, but he didn't expect to be intercepted by someone else. Kanjiang Celestial King's strength was not weak among Supreme Immortal Kings, but the three opponents all had the strength of newly ascended Supreme Immortal Kings. He couldn't take them down in a short time. As for Nine Palaces Immortal King, he was not good at fighting and had long since disappeared. Anyway, this item belonged to Kanjiang Celestial King. As a fortune teller, why would he risk his life? However, he did not know that these 3 were coming for him. As for the greenish-blue box, it was an unexpected gain. The battle between the 4 immortal kings quickly alarmed the local overlord, Mingchen. When he arrived, your 3 Tao bodies began to flee. Mingchen was puzzled, and Kanjiang Celestial King shouted, "The investiture of the gods is in their hands." Hearing this, Mingchen's body trembled, and his eyes instantly became sharp. He pursued your Tao body even more desperately than Kanjiang Celestial King. While fleeing, your Tao body opened the greenish-blue box and indeed found a golden divine list inside. Upon touching it, you received information. This item is an innate creation wonder of the investiture of the gods. Those whose names are on this list will have their true spirits remain after death and can be resurrected at any time. Most importantly, every person on the list can be infected with a divine position and title. As long as there is enough power of faith, immortal king-level deities can be infected out of thin air. Your eyes gleamed brightly. This item can be said to be incredibly compatible with the reincarnation heavenly palace. With it, you can once again seek benefits for your brothers. In the future, reincarnators will be unkillable existences, and their strength can skyrocket out of thin air. Just thinking about it makes one's scalp tingle. As for those on the list, they can only be at the mercy of the list's owner, even an immortal king is no exception. However, these are minor issues. You have always been loyal and righteous, treating others with generosity. Even if your brothers are on the list, you will not treat them unfairly. This item is of great use to you, but for an immortal king like Mingchen, who follows the divine Tao system, it is an supreme treasure. He chased your Tao body relentlessly, much more diligently than Kanjiang Celestial King. Unfortunately, although the strength of the 2 immortal kings was much stronger than your Tao body, their mental will was far inferior to yours. After chasing and fleeing through several dimensional worlds, you completely shook them off. Mingchen and Kanjiang could only rage in futility. On the other side, the reincarnation heavenly palace began to upgrade again. This upgrade took half a month, adding a faith stream based on the karma stream. The karma stream primarily allows for the exchange of various divine weapons, cultivation techniques, and treasures. The faith stream is different, it can directly enhance strength using power of faith. Of course, the division of this power of faith is 9-to-1. You get 9, and your brothers get 1. It's not that you are greedy, but rather to give your brothers more motivation to strive. As the experts of your previous life said, what's the difference between a person who doesn't strive and a corpse? To prevent your brothers from losing their ambition, you tearfully took 90% of their earnings. However, you also compensated your brothers. You put all your brothers on the investiture of the gods, so they can all be resurrected from now on. Of course, the cost of resurrection must be paid by themselves. You are quite conscientious, 3 times the cost will suffice. The extra 2 times can be considered your brothers treating you. What, not enough karma or faith for resurrection? Such people are clearly not working hard enough. Those who don't work hard are not worthy of being your brothers. Despite saying that, you still softened. You specifically launched friendship pay. Although a brother might not have money, his brother's brother can help. They are all brothers, you can't just stand by and watch them die, can you? Alas, there are not many kind people like you left in the world. The system of the reincarnation heavenly palace has been further perfected. Next, it's time to expand its scale. The reincarnation heavenly palace only has a few 100 million brothers. There are clearly not enough brothers to slaughter, or rather, to use. You calculated that, with the current carrying capacity of the reincarnation heavenly palace, it can accommodate about 10 billion reincarnators. You now have 2 innate creation wonders in your hands, the Hongmeng Dao Palace and the investiture of the gods, both of which have artifact spirits. Since they have artifact spirits, they can work. Since they can work, they cannot be idle. You never keep idle spirits. No matter what, they should work for you for 12 hours a day, right? The golden figure in your Hongmeng Dao Palace manages the affairs of the karma stream. The artifact spirit of the investiture of the gods manages the affairs of the faith stream. However, cross-dimensional teleportation still requires your main body or Dao body to act personally. You find this quite inconvenient. Recently, you have been planning to create reincarnation seals that can perform cross-dimensional teleportation along the great reincarnation system. You only need to forge them into supreme immortal artifacts, and then use primal chaos purple chi to advance them into acquired creation wonders. With 10 or 8 reincarnation seals, you will no longer need to personally handle cross-dimensional teleportation. 408. The death of the Zhugong Immortal King. The test task of the wisdom level. He transforms the magic of heaven. At this point, you no longer looked favorably upon the lower realm within the chaos realm. Those places were only suitable for low-level reincarnators who had not yet reached the earth immortal realm to cultivate. Moving forward, the reincarnation heavenly palace's main objective would still be the worlds within the dangerous shore heavens sea. Only there could large amounts of power of faith be harvested. As long as there was enough power of faith, sealing 100 billion Immortal King level reincarnators would be no problem. At this moment, the artifact spirit of the investiture of the gods informed you that while gods below the Immortal King level could be sealed indefinitely, Immortal King level gods could only have a maximum of 100 Emperor Light Immortal Kings, 1,000 Supreme Immortal Kings, and 10,000 Ordinary Immortal Kings sealed. Damn it, why so few? I see that your investiture of the gods has also found a way to die. Of course, this was just a fit of pique. The investiture of the gods had just fallen into your hands and wasn't even warm yet, you couldn't possibly destroy it. It just meant your plan for 100 billion Immortal Kings might be a long and arduous journey. Now, let the brothers of the reincarnation heavenly palace develop well, and then give the 9 heavens immortal court and little western heaven a surprise. Meanwhile, in dangerous shore heaven, after your 3 Tao bodies escaped the pursuit, Kanjiang Celestial King and Mingxian searched everywhere for your whereabouts. After all, it was a rare innate creation oddity, even Supreme Immortal Kings didn't each possess one, so the 2 of them couldn't easily give up. However, what the 2 didn't know was that your 3 Tao bodies had secretly launched a counterattack, finding the 9 Palaces Immortal King who was hiding in the Ming King dimension. After capturing him, the 9 Palaces Immortal King offered to give up all his possessions in exchange for his life. Your Tao body revealed its original appearance and sneered, "Do you think there's still room for reconciliation between us?" The 9 Palaces Immortal King exclaimed in shock, "It's actually you, the Sin Blood. I never expected your strength to increase so quickly. The 9 Heavens Immortal Court actually stopped me back then, little did they know, they were raising a tiger that would cause trouble, ha ha ha." The 9 Palaces Immortal King laughed maniacally upon learning your identity. Subsequently, your 3 Tao bodies attacked together, completely eliminating the 9 Palaces Immortal King. Of course, Immortal Kings imprint their true spirits on the river of history, so even though the 9 Palaces Immortal King died, there was a chance for him to revive in the future. However, if that day truly came, your strength would already be sufficient to erase the true spirit imprint he left in the river of history. After killing the 9 Palaces Immortal King, your thoughts became clear, and you began to sense the heavenly Tao trial mission for the 3rd step of the ascension ladder, the step of wisdom. Soon, the heavenly Tao bestowed the trial, create an Immortal Emperor law. You fell silent after reading it. Other immortal lords only needed to create an Immortal Lord law, but you, of all people, had to create an Immortal Emperor law. This is making things difficult for me. Currently, you only had 2 Immortal King laws in your possession, the Hongmeng Immortal Scripture and the Great Dream Tao Scripture. You had never even encountered an Immortal Emperor law, so creating one was clearly without any direction. However, a tall building starts from the ground up, you should first create an Immortal Lord law. Of course, the concept must be grand, otherwise, the upper limit would not reach the Immortal Emperor level. So, what kind of immortal law do you want to create? Attack, defense, burst, life-saving, speed. You weren't very keen on any of these. Strength is the foundation of everything, what you most wanted was a method to improve your strength. An Immortal Emperor law that enhances strength would certainly be a method that could be cultivated to the Immortal Emperor realm. You didn't know how to break through from Immortal King to Immortal Emperor. In the 9 Heavens Immortal Court, there were relevant records. Of course, it would definitely require contribution points. Ancient texts concerning the Immortal Emperor realm were no less valuable than the Great Dream Tao Scripture. Fortunately, you had the Jubao Bank to generously assist you, preventing you from sighing in despair. After borrowing a large sum of contribution points from the Jubao Bank again, you successfully purchased the Records of the Earth Emperor from the Immortal Court's archives. It recorded the growth trajectory of an Immortal Emperor named the Earth Emperor. You quickly skimmed over the Earth Emperor's feats of rampaging and being invincible among his peers. You focused on how he broke through from Immortal King to Immortal Emperor. Regarding this part, the book only had a few brief strokes. But you still saw that the key to the breakthrough lay in sensing the other selves, scattered throughout the chaos realm and the various dimensions of the immortal realm, and then enlightening them into self-projections. What constituted other self and self was not detailed in the book. You asked the golden figure if he knew. The golden figure said, the Hongmeng immortal king once explored the meaning and connection of other self and self, but found no answers. This is a secret concerning becoming an immortal emperor. It's likely that answers can only be found above the fifth heaven. You frowned slightly. Above the fifth heaven, where immortal emperors and immortal venerables resided, it wasn't like the first to fourth heavens where one could casually sneak in. Every 1,000 years, the dimensions above the fifth heaven would issue a batch of reception tokens, and only those who obtained a reception token were qualified to enter. There was still over 100 years until the next issuance of reception tokens. Little Western Heaven and the Nine Heavens Immortal Court were planning to reenact the journey to the west, and they might make a move against you at any time. You might not be able to wait until then. At this moment, the artifact spirit of the investiture of the gods suddenly said that its previous owner was a disciple of an immortal emperor, and it knew some hidden secrets. You hadn't expected the investiture of the gods to have such a history, and you quickly urged it to continue. The artifact spirit of the investiture of the gods continued. The relationship and origin of self and other self can be traced back to the beginning of creation. At that time, chaos was undivided, and there were many innate spirits between heaven and earth. After the Creator God opened up heaven and earth, these innate spirits shattered into countless fragments. These fragments were later called true spirits by later generations, and when true spirits entered reincarnation, they formed divine souls. Even if an innate spirit shattered into countless true spirits, there was still a sense and connection between them. This is the relationship between self and other self. The terms self and other self are also relative. For you, you are the self, and other true spirits belonging to the same innate spirit are the other selves. To break through to Immortal Emperor, one must gather 999 other selves to further strengthen the self's true spirit. Upon hearing this, you understood everything. Since the key to break through to Immortal Emperor lay in gathering other selves, then the Immortal Emperor law you created could start from this point. Afterward, you communicated with the artifact spirit of the investiture of the gods for a long time. When you learned that the strength of the other selves would affect your power after breaking through to Immortal Emperor, an idea immediately appeared in your mind. That was, you wanted to strengthen the other selves in other worlds. The cultivation technique you created would also revolve around this goal. A month later, you completed the general framework of the cultivation technique. Your mental power could descend upon other worlds through the connection between self and other self, enlightening the other selves into your clones. You named this cultivation technique Hua Tian Magic. 409. The Immortal King level skills, he and I who are impacting the Immortal Emperor. Plundering the wool to death. Another month passed, and you perfected the Hua Tian magic to the Immortal Lord level. Within a single realm, you can sense the existence of other true spirits that belong to the same innate spirit as you. This method of sensing requires the main body or Tao body or clone to travel to other worlds and sense them one by one, which is extremely inefficient. But after all, it's only an Immortal Lord level cultivation technique, so you'll make do with it for now. You are a transmigrator, and you don't know if there are other yous in this world. You had your Tao body travel through the 10 directions land, Yuan Jing Heaven, Golden Hall Heaven, and the 8 Sin Blood Plains. Unexpectedly, you really found 3 other yous. 1 Taoist, 1 monk, and 1 swordsman. The Taoist was in the 10 directions land, at the Earth Immortal Realm. The monk was in the Golden Hall Heaven, having just reached the human immortal realm. As for the swordsman, he was among the mortals on an ordinary life planet in the Calamity Domain, having only learned some crude sword techniques before venturing out into the Jianggu. Looking at the 3's different circumstances, you felt a sense of the wondrousness of creation. You also saw the 3's completely different destinies through the rules of fate. The Taoist would obtain a fortuitous encounter 1,000 years later, breaking through to heavenly immortal, but because of this encounter, he would be framed by his fellow sect members and die at the hands of a profound immortal elder of his sect. The monk, on the other hand, proceeded steadily, without any major fortuitous encounters or great disasters. He broke through to profound immortal 3,000 years later, to golden immortal 8,000 years later, and to grand unity 300,000 years later, after which he was injured by a demonic cultivator in a magical duel, making it difficult for his cultivation to advance further for the rest of his life, and he died several million years later under the 3 calamities and 9 tribulations. As for the swordsman, his ending was not bad. After adventuring in the Jianggu and realizing the wickedness of human hearts, he returned home to inherit the family business, eventually having a house full of descendants and dying of old age. However, now that you have found them, the destinies of all 3 will undergo tremendous changes. Your Tao body enlightened the 3 one by one, after which the 3 other yous transformed into your clones. This kind of clone is very different from traditional possession or transforming the other party into your puppet. What you want are other yous that have grown, not possessed puppets. Only in this way can your strength increase after fusion. Your Hua Tian magic is to use your own spiritual will to open a golden finger for each of the 3, to help them grow rapidly. In this process, your spiritual will's influence on the 3 other yous will gradually deepen. Unless their spiritual will can surpass yours, there is no hope of breaking free from your control. To break through to Immortal Emperor, you must gather 999 other yous. Now there are only 3, which is undoubtedly too few. Afterwards, you also cast the Hua Tian magic on the reincarnation heavenly palace. As long as reincarnators have entered a world, they cannot escape your sensing of other yous. This allowed you to find more and more other yous, quickly reaching 4 digits. However, you focused on cultivating 999 people, because the investiture of the god's artifact spirit said that when breaking through to Immortal Emperor, one can only fuse with 999 other yous. This is not limited by strength, but by the immortal domain heavenly Tao. As for why there is this restriction, the investiture of the god's artifact spirit is not clear, and it is estimated that only immortal emperors and immortal venerables would know. Since there is a quantity limit, you must focus on cultivating them, at least cultivating 999 other yous at the immortal lord level, right? Anyway, it's still early before you rush to the Immortal Emperor realm. You still have this confidence. If there were more time, it wouldn't be impossible to produce 999 immortal kings. Currently, you have 3 most important tasks. Creating Immortal Emperor level Hua Tian magic, strengthening the reincarnation heavenly palace, and cultivating other yous. The most urgent is definitely perfecting the Hua Tian magic. This is related to your realm breakthrough. As for the other 2 matters, you can just leave them to your Tao body. Your Hua Tian magic is only an immortal lord level cultivation technique. It's not difficult for you to perfect it to an immortal king technique. You only spent 1 year to achieve it. This greatly enhanced your ability to sense other yous. As long as they are within a certain range of the dimension you are in, you can sense and enlighten them. For example, when you are in the 10 directions land, you can sense all other yous within the range of the alien realm and the 9 heavens. You additionally found 5 more other yous, 3 in the alien realm and 2 in the 9 heavens. However, this time, unlike before, among the 3 other yous in the alien realm, one had broken through to the immortal lord level, requiring you to control him before you could complete the enlightenment. And of the 2 other yous above the 5th heaven, one was in the 5th heaven at the supreme immortal realm. The other was in the 7th heaven, and his strength was so great that it made your heart palpitate. Fortunately, his spiritual realm was not as high as yours, and he hadn't discovered your existence for the time being. Otherwise, with just 1 more sensing, you would have been exposed. You didn't expect that an other you could reach such a realm. He might be the highest realm existence among the true spirit fragments formed from the same innate spirit. His realm should still be at the immortal king level, not yet having broken through to immortal emperor. Because the cultivation of an immortal emperor is to gather all other yous and reform a complete innate spirit. If he were an immortal emperor, and you 2 were this close, he would have discovered your existence long ago. You decided to first enlighten the other you at the supreme immortal realm in Ruyi heaven, 5th heaven. There are immortal emperors above the 5th heaven. After enlightening him, you might be able to obtain some profound cultivation techniques to help you perfect your Hua Tian magic. However, just as you were about to enlighten him, that other you in the 5th heaven suddenly disappeared. Even if he died, he would enter reincarnation. This situation wouldn't occur. Could it be that you sensed the other you in Tai Huang heaven, 7th heaven, again and found that his true spirit had visibly grown a circle larger? Good heavens, this wasn't a disappearance, this was being enlightened and devoured. Is that other you in the 7th heaven already starting to attack the immortal emperor realm? Damn it, you're only 32 years old, you don't want to die. Although attacking the Immortal Emperor is not an overnight matter, you also lived for a long time in the immortal domain in previous simulations. But immortal kings can view the past and future, greatly increasing variables, and you dare not gamble on the future remaining unchanged. You still need to speed up your strength improvement. The Huatian magic has been perfected to an immortal king technique. To further perfect it, a large number of immortal king techniques of the same rank are needed for reference. You originally planned to rely on Jubao Bank for a steady flow, borrowing money at intervals to purchase immortal king techniques. Now, you can't wait for a steady flow, you'll just exploit it to the fullest. Jubao Bank currently offers an annual interest of 3% of the principal, you simply waved your hand and raised its annual interest to 5%. At the same time, you had Jubao Bank spread the word that it must crush all competitors and rivals. 410. The innate magic treasure, the battle axe. The shocked Nine Heavens Immortal King, don't believe you, right? Many in the Nine Heavens Immortal Court side, Jubao Bank had truly gone all out this time. At the same time, they transferred the contribution points from other banks. After all, Jubao Bank itself wanted to engage in a business war, so why not make a profit from it? Ganzhong found Gao He and said that the interest rate was too high, and if they defaulted, it would be troublesome. Gao He was confident and told Ganzhong to rest assured. As long as Jubao Bank crushed the small and medium-sized banks that dealt in contribution points, they would monopolize the contribution point market, and the profit margin would be unimaginable. Naturally, other small and medium-sized banks would not sit idly by and also raise their annual interest rates. However, if the interest rate was high and the contribution points could not be lent out, they would soon be operating at a deficit. Just as the various managers were frowning with worry, you descended like a heavenly god. You told the managers of these small and medium-sized banks that you would borrow as many contribution points as they had. To make them believe in your sincerity, you even invited some friends you had made in the Nine Heavens Immortal Court to vouch for you. Over the years, although you had borrowed a large number of contribution points, you had never defaulted. Your credibility was well known. Coupled with the guarantees from various big shots, the small and medium-sized banks, which didn't have many other options, all lent their contribution points to you. You immediately took this contribution and went to the Nine Heavens Immortal Court headquarters to exchange it for 5 Immortal King level cultivation techniques. All your contribution points were used up, so what would you use for regular repayments? Would you not repay? With your noble character, of course, you wouldn't do such a thing. Being a person, integrity is the most important thing. Even if you take out a loan, you must repay it. A year later, you integrated all the essence of these 5 Immortal King laws into Huatian magic. The rank of Huatian magic had improved, but it was still quite a distance from the Immortal Emperor law. Meanwhile, outside, the business war between Jubao Bank and other banks had reached a fever pitch. The annual interest rate soared all the way to 10%. This meant that without doing anything, the principal could increase by 1/10 in a year. And with compound interest, the principal could double in just 7 or 8 years. It goes without saying how difficult it was to earn contribution points. Now that there was such a quick way to make money, many people couldn't resist and directly put their entire fortune into it. The entire Nine Heavens Immortal Court was filled with a fervent atmosphere. Of course, there were always clear-headed individuals who wondered if this might be a scam. However, not long after, 3 Immortal Kings personally entered the fray and deposited money into Jubao Bank. These 3 Immortal Kings were lured by Gao He with double interest and the credibility guarantee of Purple Subtlety Immortal King, all to boost Jubao Bank's prestige. At this, everyone rolled their eyes at the doubters. Even Immortal Kings had entered the fray, so no matter how bold Jubao Bank was, would they dare to swindle an Immortal King's money? To further fuel the fire, Jubao Bank also privately bribed the heavenly god of wealth Immortal Lord, who was in charge of finances in the Nine Heavens Immortal Court, with a large sum of contribution points. Not long after, the heavenly god of wealth Immortal Lord publicly stated that the bank's interest business was a genius idea, a very safe business model, and that there would be no risks for at least 100,000 years. The heavenly god of wealth Immortal Lord was a confidant of the Nine Heavens Immortal King and cultivated the divine law of money. In the Nine Heavens Immortal Court, no one could surpass him in understanding money. With his statement, many who were previously observing also began to deposit money. For a time, Jubao Bank and the various small and medium-sized banks rapidly accumulated terrifying wealth. and 7/10 of it was borrowed by you alone. As long as the debt didn't collapse, you were a walking god of wealth. Many called you Immortal Lord Lu. Wherever you went, it was a joyous occasion. You took advantage of this favorable wind to exchange all the Immortal King laws in the Nine Heavens Immortal Court. The rest was used to exchange for the only innate spirit treasure of creation in the Nine Heavens Immortal Court's treasury of the Battle Heaven Axe. You were currently lacking an offensive innate spirit treasure, and the Battle Heaven Axe was undoubtedly very suitable for you. When the Nine Heavens Immortal King learned that the Battle Heaven Axe had been exchanged, he was greatly surprised. The Battle Heaven Axe was a trophy he had obtained from a foreign powerhouse 80 million years ago. Since he already possessed the innate spirit treasure of creation of the Sword of Annihilation, of the Battle Heaven Axe was somewhat redundant for him. So he deliberately set an absurdly high price and placed it in the treasury for exchange. Logically speaking, only by achieving an unparalleled feat of saving the entire Nine Heavens Immortal Court by one's own power would one have enough contribution points to exchange for the Battle Heaven Axe. The Nine Heavens Immortal Court was peaceful now, so how could anyone exchange for it? Could it be the How-To Immortal King of the Western Extremity? The How-To Immortal King maintained the reincarnation system of the Nine Heavens Immortal Court and even the entire Mozang Heaven, with a large amount of contribution points flowing in every moment. The Nine Heavens Immortal King did not know how many contribution points she possessed. If it was the How-To Immortal King, there might be hope of exchanging for the Battle Heaven Axe. The Nine Heavens Immortal King curiously swept his immortal sense and discovered that it was you who had exchanged for the Battle Heaven Axe, and he couldn't help but be greatly alarmed. You had only joined the Nine Heavens Immortal Court for less than 10 years, and you could already afford the Battle Heaven Axe. How could this be acceptable to the elders who had joined the Nine Heavens Immortal Court for hundreds of millions of years? The Nine Heavens Immortal King felt that something was very wrong. Upon inquiring with his immortal officials, he learned that in recent years, many banks offering high interest rates had emerged. These banks, after receiving deposits, lent them out in the form of high interest loans. Your contribution points were basically all borrowed from these banks. At first glance, this business model seemed to have no problems. But the fact that you alone could borrow so many contribution points was a big problem. If you couldn't repay, wouldn't this model directly collapse? As the ruler of the Nine Heavens Immortal Court, the Nine Heavens Immortal King instantly grasped the crux of the problem and broke out in a cold sweat. Quick, transmit my order. Let the Heavenly God of Justice, Yang Jian, investigate all the accounts of these banks. The Nine Heavens Immortal King immediately ordered. He wanted to see where all the contribution points deposited by so many immortal families had flowed. If it was truly as he predicted, the Nine Heavens Immortal Court had undoubtedly buried a huge landmine. Investigate accounts. With your eyes and ears everywhere, you quickly received the news and revealed a cold smile. 7/10 of the contribution points on the market had been borrowed by you. When the Nine Heavens Immortal King wanted to investigate accounts, whose accounts was he investigating? He was investigating your accounts. You recalled that since joining the Nine Heavens Immortal Court, you had been diligent and never made any mistakes. You had also repaid the debts of the major banks on time, never defaulting. How could he not trust such a loyal, trustworthy, and morally exemplary person? You currently only had a mere 3 trillion contribution points in loans. Could it be that you wouldn't be able to repay them? 411. You forced me to do it. The new owner in the fire case. The Judicial Temple took action. Although you knew that Nine Heavens Immortal King never considered you one of his own, his actions still made you feel incredibly disheartened. Forget it, let the Judicial Divine Hall investigate. You are upright and righteous, what is there to fear? Moreover, these 3 trillion contribution points were all obtained through legal means. As long as you repay on time, even the Judicial Divine Hall won't find any fault. You needed to repay 1 billion contribution points next month. You looked at the few hundred contribution points you had inside, it seems I'll have to take out another loan. You can take out a loan, but you cannot default, this is your bottom line as a person. As soon as you left the Marshal's mansion, you were shocked by the bad news. The Judicial Divine Hall announced that during the audit period, all relevant banks, including Jubao Bank, would be closed, and no movement of contribution points on the books would be allowed. Tomorrow is the 1st of next month, your repayment date. Is the Judicial Divine Hall doing this? You returned to the Marshal's mansion with a gloomy expression. Seeing your poor complexion, the immortal maid poured you a cup of immortal tea. Yu gripped the teacup and said, word by word, Lu Chengsheng's reputation cannot have any blemish. All of this, you forced me to do. On the other side, Gao He began to act. He found Ganzhong and said tremblingly, as the scale of the shop grew, he felt increasingly overwhelmed. He was willing to transfer Jubao Bank to Ganzhong, his boss, for free. Ganzhong laughed heartily. He was fully aware of Jubao Bank's accounts and knew what his subordinate was afraid of. It was nothing more than the Celestial River Grand Marshal's massive deficit, and the fear of accountability from the Judicial Divine Hall. On this point, Ganzhong was not afraid in the slightest. He had many good friends in the Judicial Divine Hall, and he also had Purple Subtlety Immortal King as his backing. If the Judicial Divine Hall wanted to audit the accounts, he could handle it with ease. Even if the Judicial Divine Hall were to pursue responsibility, the primary responsibility would lie with Marshal Tianhe, with Jubao Bank only bearing secondary responsibility. Therefore, Ganzhong had nothing to worry about. Moreover, he had been in the quasi-immortal king realm for 70 million years and was just lacking resources for a breakthrough to immortal king. Ganzhong had actually coveted Jubao Bank for a long time. Even if Gao He hadn't brought it up, he was looking for an opportunity to seize it. Now that Gao He had voluntarily offered it, Ganzhong could legitimately acquire Jubao Bank. Why wouldn't he accept it? Ganzhong accepted Jubao Bank, then hosted a banquet for his brothers, announcing himself as the new owner of Jubao Bank. Afterward, Ganzhong rarely allowed himself to relax, taking a long sleep. In his bed, he even chuckled aloud. That fellow Gao He was truly timid, allowing him to pick up such a great bargain. Jubao Bank possessed immense wealth. Ganyang's good days were coming. However, not long after he fell asleep, he vaguely heard someone screaming in panic, "Fire! Fire! Jubao Bank is on fire!" Ganzhong jolted, instantly wide awake. His figure flickered, and he appeared outside Jubao Bank. He saw raging flames engulfing the place. This fire was no ordinary fire, it was true samadhi fire, capable of harming a quasi-immortal king. Ganzhong also expended a great deal of effort to extinguish the true samadhi fire. Although the flames were extinguished, all of Jubao Bank's accounts were burned to ashes. "Where's Gao He? Where did Gao He go?" Ganzhong asked anxiously. With the accounts destroyed, how was he supposed to collect debts? Now he could only hope that Gao He still had backups, otherwise, the problem would be huge. At this moment, his subordinate whispered, "Manager Gao is gone." Ganyang's vision went black. Such a thing happened right after he took over Jubao Bank. He felt his life was over. He roared, "What are you still standing there for? Go find him for me." His subordinates quickly went to search for Gao He's whereabouts. Hearing that Jubao Bank was on fire, many people who had deposited contribution points there rushed to inquire about the situation. Ganzhong, the new bank master, forced out a smile and said, "This was just an insignificant small fire, there is no loss to anyone's deposited contribution points." Someone didn't believe him and wanted to withdraw money immediately. Ganyang's face darkened. His entire fortune was deposited in Jubao Bank, where would he have contribution points on him now? However, to avoid causing panic, Ganzhong reassured everyone that he would go get the money and ask them to wait a moment. Then, he went directly to the Marshal Tianhe's mansion. He knew that most of Jubao Bank's contribution points had been borrowed by you. Now that the situation was urgent, asking you to repay a portion in advance shouldn't be too difficult, right? After being announced all the way, he quickly found you sipping tea in the inner courtyard. You heard him ask you to repay a portion of the debt in advance and asked in surprise, "Debt? What debt?" All of this marshal's debts at Jubao Bank were settled with Gao He yesterday. This marshal does not owe your Jubao Bank a single cent now. If you don't believe me, you can have Gao He come confront me. Ganzhong almost spat out a mouthful of old blood. How could he not know about such a big matter? Could it be that Gao He disappeared because he absconded with the funds? In the end, Ganzhong left the marshal's mansion dejectedly. He then went to gather some money from friends and finally managed to appease those who wanted to withdraw money. But there are no secrets that can be kept forever, and the news of Jubao Bank's contribution point shortage quickly spread. Just as Ganzhong was frantically dealing with the situation, other banks doing contribution point business in the Nine Heavens Immortal Court also began to frequently catch fire. This immediately caused panic within the Nine Heavens Immortal Court. Many people who had deposited contribution points rushed to demand withdrawals. The contribution points of various major banks were almost all lent out. For a time, how could they possibly produce so many contribution points? The managers of the major banks could only try to find solutions while stalling for time. The Judicial Divine Hall was also greatly enraged by this sudden situation. Such a thing happened just as they were about to audit the accounts. This was a slap in their face. The most frustrating thing was that they had no choice but to speak up for the major banks to stabilize those who had deposited money. Otherwise, if the major banks were forced to close, there would instantly be a deficit of trillions of contribution points in the market. At that time, the negative impact would sweep across all industries like a tide, severely damaging the entire Nine Heavens Immortal Court's origin chi. The Judicial Divine Hall was both maintaining stability and helping the major banks recover the lent-out contribution points. Although the accounts were burned and destroyed, facing a powerful and violent institution like the Judicial Divine Hall, many people still obediently repaid their loans. However, these were all small amounts. The large sums were all on you, the Celestial River Grand Marshal. According to the Judicial Divine Hall's investigation, at least 70% of the loans on the market flowed into your pockets. And your massive exchange records in the Nine Heavens Immortal Court could also confirm this. The frequent fire incidents this time were also extremely peculiar. But the biggest beneficiary was undoubtedly you. The Judicial Divine Hall could completely use this as a starting point to bring you to justice. 412. What level are you? Kill and eat meat. The crisis broke out, the Fairy Court's response method. Soon, Yang Jian had Immortal Lord Si Chen, the Deputy Hall Master, bring his howling celestial dog to demand an explanation. As soon as Immortal Lord Si Chen arrived, he coldly said, Marshal Tianhe, our Judicial Divine Hall suspects you are greatly involved in the dozen or so arson cases recently. Please come with us. Your expression remained unchanged as you said, do you have evidence? Upon hearing this, Immortal Lord Si Chen's face turned cold. On normal days, whenever others in the Nine Heavens Immortal Court encountered people from the Judicial Divine Hall, which one of them wasn't trembling with fear? He, the dignified Deputy Hall Master, had personally come to their door, and yet they dared to ask him for evidence. Immortal Lord Si Chen snorted coldly, our Judicial Divine Hall has the authority to execute first and report later. We do not need evidence to handle cases. The next moment, your palm solidly landed on his face, turning half of it into mangled flesh. You stepped on the wailing Immortal Lord Si Chen, who was lying on the ground, and bent down, asking in confusion, what standing do you have to speak to me like that? And the Judicial Divine Hall handles cases without needing evidence. Today, even if the Nine Heavens Immortal King came, he would still have to show me evidence. Woof, woof, woof. The howling celestial dog, witnessing this scene from the side, fiercely lunged forward. Letting your dog bite people, are you? You kicked out, and the howling celestial dog let out a mournful cry before falling silent. The other enforcement personnel of the Judicial Divine Hall, seeing your ferocity, were scared pale and didn't dare to breathe loudly. Get out. You kicked Immortal Lord Si Chen flying, and the group of enforcement personnel caught him, then quickly rushed back. Someone also wanted to take the unconscious howling celestial dog, but you stopped them with a sharp glare. Since Yang Jian dared to let his dog bite people, you dared to give him an unforgettable lesson. When the crowd returned to the Judicial Divine Hall, they immediately reported the matter to Yang Jian, the Hall Master of the Judicial Divine Hall, who was currently interrogating the money house manager. He injured the Deputy Hall Master and even stole my dog. Yang Jian frowned. This person surnamed Lu was even more arrogant than he had imagined. The reason he sent Immortal Lord Si Chen and the howling celestial dog to invite you was to give you a way out. If he, the Judicial Heavenly God, had personally taken action, there would have been no room for maneuver. But since you were so insensible, then he, Yang Jian, couldn't be blamed for being ruthless. Yang Jian, carrying his three-pointed double-edged halberd, personally led a group of experts from the Judicial Divine Hall to the Celestial River Navy headquarters. As Yang Jian led the crowd and arrived outside the Marshal's mansion of the Celestial River, he smelled a waft of dog meat. His expression changed, and he directly broke down the door and entered. Inside the courtyard, a large bronze cauldron was placed, in which a large pot of dog meat was being stewed. You and a golden-furred monkey were by the bronze cauldron, drinking wine and eating meat heartily. Bastard, how dare you eat my brother? Yang Jian recognized at a glance that what was being cooked was indeed the howling celestial dog. This immortal beast and companion who had accompanied him from his humble beginnings had actually become food in someone else's mouth. Yang Jian, consumed by rage, immediately raised his three-pointed double-edged halberd and fiercely struck at you. Isn't it just a dog? Why is little saint so angry? My old son will buy you 10 more another day and send them over. The golden-furred monkey pulled out his wish-fulfilling golden C-registered rod and met the attack. The two of them began to fight in the marshal's mansion. This golden-furred monkey was, of course, Sun Wukong. Eating dog meat on such a cold day was truly a delight. For such a wonderful thing, you certainly wouldn't forget your good brother. You ate dog meat while enjoying the fight between Sun Wukong and Yang Jian. Sun Wukong was a quasi-immortal king. Yang Jian's realm was higher than Sun Wukong's, he was an ordinary immortal king. But when they fought, the two were evenly matched. Anyway, in a short time, neither could do anything to the other. When you saw the battlefield between the two growing larger and the formation of the marshal's mansion struggling to hold, you finally acted. With just one move, you heavily injured Yang Jian, causing him to cough up blood. Yang Jian looked at you in disbelief, not expecting you to have hidden your strength so deeply. The monkey was also a little surprised by your strength. You said to Yang Jian, the reason I'm not killing him today isn't because his uncle is the Nine Heavens Immortal King, but out of consideration for our camaraderie. Don't be so arrogant when you go out in the future. Do you really think the Judicial Divine Hall can just arrest people as they please? Yang Jian left with a face full of unwillingness. There were still many onlookers around the marshal's mansion. This time, the Judicial Divine Hall had completely lost face. Everyone also didn't expect your strength to be so formidable, comparable to a supreme immortal king, right? The Judicial Divine Hall suffered such a great loss, they definitely wouldn't let it go. Tisk tisk, there's a good show to watch next. The Judicial Divine Hall indeed did not let it go. However, Yang Jian did not seek out the Nine Heavens Immortal King to stand up for him, but instead chose to expose the massive amount of debt you carried. What you borrowed was the life savings of many immortal families. As the saying goes, popular indignation is hard to violate. If you didn't give them an explanation, there would be plenty of people going to the Nine Heavens Immortal King to complain. The information revealed by the Judicial Divine Hall indeed stirred up 1,000 waves, causing many people to come in groups to your door, demanding their contribution points. However, Yang Jian still underestimated your thick skin and methods. Hadn't you painstakingly burned the account books of various money houses precisely for this moment? You borrowed money from various money houses, not from them. If they wanted to find someone, they could only go to the money house managers. The money house managers should have come to you, but with the account books destroyed, it became a bad debt. Legally speaking, you no longer owed anyone any contribution points. As for those who came to demand debt, you treated them all as provoking trouble and arrested them, publicly whipping them. You wanted to see if your whip was harder or their bones were harder. Facts proved that most people were bullies who preyed on the weak. After being whipped hundreds of times for nothing at your place, these people went to cause trouble at various money houses again. But where would the money houses still have contribution points? The majority was with you. Although others also borrowed some, that portion of contribution points was merely a drop in the bucket. If you didn't acknowledge the debt, they could only wait for death. Actually, it wasn't that you didn't acknowledge the debt. The key was that there weren't even any accounts, so how could you acknowledge it? The Nine Heavens Immortal King had been observing the development of the situation. Seeing that the Judicial Divine Hall also couldn't do anything to you, he finally had no choice but to personally intervene. He first summoned you alone, hoping that you could return the Immortal King Dao and innate spirit treasure you exchanged to the Nine Heavens Immortal Court, and then the Nine Heavens Immortal Court would refund the contribution points to you, and you could then use those contribution points to repay your debts. It must be said that this was indeed a perfect solution that could minimize the losses of the Nine Heavens Immortal Court. Moreover, the Immortal King Dao had passed through your hands, so you could be considered to have gained a great advantage. However, that's not how the accounts were calculated. Firstly, the Immortal King Dao was inscribed on special jade tablets. Only by holding the jade tablets and comprehending them could one fully grasp their profound mysteries. You still had 7 or 8 Immortal King Dao that you hadn't fully comprehended, so naturally, it was impossible to hand them over. Secondly, the Battle Heaven Axe was the only offensive innate spirit treasure in your possession, and you could not return it. Furthermore, you no longer owed anyone any contribution points. Therefore, there was simply no room for negotiation on this matter. Anyway, you had already prepared to fall out with the Nine Heavens Immortal King. Although you couldn't defeat the Emperor Light Immortal King, it wasn't easy for the Emperor Light Immortal King to find your true body's location. 413. The final creation of the Immortal Emperor Law, the third level of the Immortal Lord. Create the universe, the Peach Banquet. However, to your surprise, after you rejected the Nine Heavens Immortal King's request, he did not choose to turn hostile towards you. Instead, he said, the Pandao banquet is approaching, so we will not bother with you this time. Do not let there be a next time, eh? After speaking, he dismissed you. Not long after you left, the Queen Mother of the West walked out from behind the screen and smiled at the Nine Heavens Immortal King. You can actually swallow such a huge loss. The Nine Heavens Immortal King coldly snorted. Rest assured, we will make him spit out double what he ate at the Pandao banquet. Not long after, the Nine Heavens Immortal Court took out a large sum of contribution points to compensate the many immortal cultivators who had lost their capital. At the same time, the Nine Heavens Immortal King ordered that from now on, contribution point transactions were forbidden, and everyone could only use their own contribution points. As for the bank managers who caused the Nine Heavens Immortal Court to suffer great losses, they were all sent to the Xingtian platform to suffer the punishment of being hacked by swords and axes, burned by fire, and struck by lightning. Until their forms and spirits were completely annihilated, only then would the punishment cease. Even Ganzhong, the Purple Subtlety Immortal King's confidant, could not escape this calamity. On the way to the Xingtian platform, Ganzhong shouted that he was wronged, saying that he had only been a manager for less than a day when the fire broke out, and it was purely a miscarriage of justice. At the Xingtian platform, Ganzhong also saw the judicial heavenly god Yang Jian, and immediately knelt down with a thud, crying and complaining that Lu Chengsheng is the culprit behind all of this. Please, Erlang True Monarch, capture him and make him die with me. Yang Jian's face darkened. He had been severely wounded by your single move a few days ago, and his injuries had not yet recovered. Ganzhong was not asking him to capture someone, but rather rubbing salt in his wounds. Yang Jian immediately took matters into his own hands, making Ganzhong let out the loudest scream in the entire place. Time flew by, and 3 years passed. The contribution point turmoil gradually subsided. In these 3 years, you first spent over a year integrating 7 or 8 Immortal Emperor laws, which you exchanged from the Nine Heavens Immortal Court, into your Hiwatian magic. The sensing range of your Hiwatian magic further expanded. In the following year, your 3 Dao bodies obtained nearly 10 more Immortal Emperor laws from Dangerous Shore Heaven, which you also one by one integrated into your Hiwatian magic. When the core profound truth of the last Immortal Emperor law was integrated into it, your Hiwatian magic finally reached a new level, becoming an Immortal Emperor law. As long as they belonged to the true spirit of the same innate spirit, you could sense them. You successfully completed the Heavenly Dao test of the Wisdom stage. You stepped onto the Wisdom stage of the Ascension ladder. You break through the Immortal Lord Third Realm. Your strength further advanced. Now, even without using the innate creation spirit treasury a Battle Heaven Axe, you are not afraid of Mingxian and Kanjiang Celestial King. If you use the Battle Heaven Axe, unless the opponent also has an offensive innate spirit treasure, you will have few rivals among Supreme Immortal Kings. After the breakthrough, you also spent several days sensing the total number of your other selves. There were a total of over 176 million other selves. Among them, besides the other self in the 7th heaven, there were 5 immortal kings. Of course, the one with the highest realm was still the other self in the 7th heaven. He was already attempting to break through to Immortal Emperor, and was probably at the half-step Immortal Emperor realm now. And there were over 30 Immortal Lords. There were also over 700 Supreme Immortals. According to the number of over 176 million, the proportion of powerhouses among your other selves was simply terrifyingly high. Perhaps the innate spirit to which you belonged was also a powerhouse among innate spirits before it shattered. However, this saved you a lot of effort. You could completely choose to enlighten the powerhouses among your other selves, which would undoubtedly save a lot of time for your plan of 999 Immortal Lords. Of course, this enlightenment would certainly not be completed overnight. Especially for Immortal Lords and Immortal Kings who have gradually transcended the rules and refined divine laws, you must enter their respective worlds and enlighten them in person. Some worlds are extremely distant, and you estimate it will take 2 to 3 years to complete the enlightenment of the Immortal Lords and Immortal Kings. Among these 5 Immortal King other selves, there is also an Emperor Light Immortal King, who is probably not someone that can be enlightened in a short period of time. However, you have already created the Immortal Emperor law, allowing you to sense all other selves in advance and grasp their movements, which already gives you a great advantage in this competition to converge your other selves. As long as you raise your strength by a few more levels, you will definitely be the final winner. Afterward, you sense the heavenly Tao again to see what the test mission for the fourth stagia, the creation stagia, was. The creation stage, as the name suggests, is the creation of things from the void realm. In the previous 3 stages, the rules created by immortal lords had undergone 3 transformations, initially possessing various miraculous effects. And the 4th stage is to make the immortal cultivator excavate the creation ability within the rules. Different rules vary greatly, and can only be explored by the immortal cultivator themselves. Generally speaking, the higher the grade of the rule, the higher the requirements. For example, for rules below the 6th grade, creating some stones or gold is sufficient, while for creations above the 6th grade rules, it will be more complex, involving some heaven and earth treasure. As for 1st grade rules, it generally requires creating the resources for a small world out of nothing. Your 10,000 laws rule is the king of rules, and its requirements are extremely abnormal. You estimate that you need to create a major 1,000 worlds to pass the test. Damn it, you had already set your expectations high this time, but when you saw the heavenly Tao's requirements, you still couldn't help but curse. The immortal domain heavenly Tao actually requires you to create a universe. A universe has 3,000 great worlds, countless minor and small worlds, as well as various cosmic wonders, life planets, special planets. Alright, so this is how you want to play. Without saying anything else, you first politely greeted the immortal domain heavenly Tao's ancestors for 18 generations. This guy acts so ruthlessly, he probably doesn't have any ancestors. Create a universe. You smiled. How do you create such a thing? The things involved are simply too many, 1,000 threads and a myriad of loose ends, which truly gave you a headache. However, you still bit the bullet and set down your cultivation plan. To create a universe, you must first understand the universe. You must first comprehend the composition and operating principles of the universe before you can hope to create it. As for the matter of enlightening your other selves, you let your Tao body handle it. Your main body went to a lower realm to begin a detailed study of the universe. Oh, and the Pan Tao banquet is only 2 months away. As the Celestial River Grand Marshal, you naturally received an invitation. At that time, just send a Tao body to deal with it. Also, that Sun Wukong guy recently got a promotion and was assigned to manage the peach orchard. I wonder if he will steal and eat the peaches. Monkeys stealing peaches is their nature. Your Tao body has repeatedly explained the consequences to him, hoping he doesn't mess things up at a critical moment. 414. The Zaiwei Poisonous Plan, Create Stars. Ying Bu who got it for himself. However, the Pan Tao banquet seems to be greatly related to you as well. In the journey to the West World, Marshal Tianhe was demoted to the mortal realm because he got drunk and molested Chang'e at the Pan Tao banquet. I wonder if Nine Heaven's immortal king will use the same reason to make things difficult for you. On the other hand, even if he uses some despicable tricks, your spiritual will has already reached the manifestation realm, so you definitely won't end up like Marshal Tianpeng. At the same time, Purple Subtlety Immortal King called Ying Bu, who had been transferred to Nine Heaven's Immortal King's side to serve as the curtain-rolling general. The previous curtain-rolling general was demoted to the Flowing Sands River for breaking Nine Heaven's Immortal King's glazed lamp. Purple Subtlety Immortal King then recommended Ying Bu to take over the position. Purple Subtlety Immortal King took out a jade bottle and handed it to Ying Bu, saying, "Inside is dragon essence powder. Dragons are inherently lustful. As long as you make Marshal Tianhe consume this at the peach gathering, he will inevitably lose control and make a fool of himself in public. The Pan Tao banquet is a grand event that occurs once every 1,000 years. If he behaves improperly, His Majesty Nine Heavens will surely punish him, and you will be able to avenge your dismissal." Ying Bu took the jade bottle, his excitement impossible to conceal. Although he was now the curtain-rolling general, serving Nine Heaven's Immortal King, he lived cautiously every day, fearing any mistakes. He simply didn't have the carefree life he had when he was the deputy marshal in the Celestial River Navy. That Lu fellow not only dismissed him but also caused the death of hundreds of his trusted generals. If he didn't avenge this, how could he face the wrong souls of his brothers? Watching Ying Bu leave in high spirits, Purple Subtlety Immortal King stroked his beard and smiled, saying, "Watching the chess pieces contend is quite interesting. 2 months passed in a flash. You have completely comprehended the composition and operating principles of the universe. This is just the simplest first step. Creating something out of the void realm is the most difficult part. For you, using the 10,000 laws rule, which has undergone 3 transformations, to create some items is not difficult, but trying to create a universe all at once is unlikely. You decided to divide the creation process into 7 steps, from easy to difficult: planets, stars, black holes, nebulae, galaxies, star domains, and the universe. Creating a planet is not difficult for you, it only takes a few days, which is just a short quarter of an hour under 100-fold time flow. During the creation process, you also gained a deeper understanding of the use of the all laws. If it were any other immortal lord, creating a planet would be enough to be proud of. But you still have a universe waiting for you to create. Of course, the difficulty is different, and the increase in strength after a breakthrough is vastly different. Otherwise, it would be impossible for you to possess strength comparable to the top powerhouses among supreme immortal kings at the 3rd stage of an immortal lord. Next, the difficulty of creating a star is much higher. It took you a full day under 100-fold time flow. At the same time, the peach gathering of the 9 heavens immortal court was held as scheduled. This peach gathering was originally held for the birthday of Queen Mother of the West, lasting for 3 days. Whenever this time came, important figures from all forces in Mozang heaven would come to wish the Queen Mother a happy birthday. All the immortal families in the 9 heavens immortal court who were presentable would also attend one by one. These 3 days could be said to be the most lively 3 days for the 9 heavens immortal court once every 1,000 years. Due to the previous matter of contribution points, your reputation as a deadbeat was well known. The most crucial thing was that you ended up completely fine. All losses were paid for by the 9 heavens immortal court. Now, the outside world is widely spreading that you are the illegitimate son of 9 heavens immortal king, which is why he indulges you so much. Therefore, many immortal families naturally came to admire and see you, this celebrity. You also adhered to the principle of more friends, more paths, and mingled with everyone. However, what puzzled you was that you had not seen Sun Wukong for a long time. Could it be that he didn't receive an invitation? In the journey to the West World, Sun Wukong caused a great disturbance in the heavenly palace precisely because he wasn't invited. You decided to go to the peach orchard to see what was going on. As you found an excuse and were about to extricate yourself from the crowd, the curtain-rolling General Ying Bu suddenly walked up to you, holding 2 cups of fine wine. He handed one of the wine cups to you and smiled, saying, "In the past, when this general was in the Celestial River Navy, I offended Marshal many times. Today, coinciding with the Pandao banquet, I toast Marshal a cup as an apology." Ying Bu saw that you were unmoved, so he drank his cup in one gulp. Only then did you take the wine cup. Seeing this, Ying Bu secretly rejoiced. As long as you drank this wine, he just had to wait and see how you would make a fool of yourself in front of all the immortals. "Drink my ass," you snorted coldly and directly splashed the wine on Ying Bu's face. Your spiritual will had already sensed that Ying Bu harbored strong hostility towards you. It was clear that his offer of wine was not sincere. You act with integrity and despise hypocrites like Ying Bu. Since it wasn't a sincere apology, who would give him face by drinking the wine? You, this dragon essence powder. Ying Bu's face changed drastically, he mumbled incoherently for a few sentences, then turned and ran. The immortal families thought he was leaving in shame, unable to bear the humiliation. Little did they know that Ying Bu was afraid of the dragon essence powder in the wine taking effect and wanted to find a place to hide. The potency of this dragon essence powder was extremely fierce, capable of even affecting immortal kings. Even if it wasn't drunk, it could seep into the body through the facial skin. However, Ying Bu hadn't run far when he saw Fairy Chang'e of the Moon Palace leading a team of fairies to perform a dance. Fairy Chang'e was known as the most beautiful woman in the 9 heavens immortal court, and Ying Bu was momentarily lost in a daze. Coupled with the sudden onset of the dragon essence powder's effects, Ying Bu immediately seemed to have lost his 3 ethereal souls and 7 corporeal spirits, giggling as he pounced towards Fairy Chang'e. The immortals were greatly shocked. In such a solemn occasion, with 9 heavens immortal kings still seated on the stage, Ying Bu was truly audacious. However, before Ying Bu could touch Chang'e, he was sent flying by a 3-pointed, double-edged halberd. Ying Bu looked up and met Yang Jian's cold gaze. Throughout the entire immortal court, who didn't know of Yang Jian's admiration for Fairy Chang'e? Ying Bu actually committed such a lewd act in front of him. He was truly like an old man hanging himself, tired of living. With one strike, much of the dragon essence powder's potency on Ying Bu's face dissipated. He sobered up and said with a mournful face, "True Lord Erlang, if I said that was just a misunderstanding, would you believe me? Go tell His Majesty." Yang Jian snorted coldly and escorted him before Nine Heavens' immortal king. With various immortal families gathered at the Pandao banquet, such an embarrassing incident occurred. Nine Heavens' immortal king immediately ordered 3,000 strokes of the cane, strip him of his immortal body, and demote him to immortal. HMPH, you scared fairy Chang'e. Do you still want to be a human in your next life? Yang Jian quietly followed him. 415. The plan can't keep up with the changes, who is making trouble in the heavenly palace? Seeing all these changes unfold, not only did you not gloat, but your expression turned unusually grim. The immortal wine Ying Bu offered you just now must have been problematic. And Ying Bu is the curtain-raising general by the Nine Heavens immortal king's side. This position is a close attendant, one that can only be held by someone he trusts absolutely. Thus, it seems Ying Bu's actions were mostly instigated by the Nine Heavens immortal king. No wonder he did not turn hostile over the contribution points earlier, he had already set a trap for you. Although you managed to resolve it this time, what about next time, or the time after that? Chill ran down your spine. It seems Ida's time to leave the Nine Heavens immortal court. The most valuable items in the Nine Heavens immortal court's treasury have already been completely plundered by you. The only thing of slight value to you is the reputation of the Nine Heavens immortal court, which could deter some petty villains for you. But after several breakthroughs, your strength is already considerable. Now that the Nine Heavens immortal king is determined to put you to death, there is no need to stay any longer. However, before leaving, you were still worried about your good brother, the monkey, and decided to visit him in the peach orchard to say goodbye. You left the banquet, transformed into someone else's appearance, and hurried towards the peach orchard. Upon arriving at the peach orchard, you revealed your true form and began to send a message to Sun Wukong. In a moment, Sun Wukong opened the restriction of the peach orchard and welcomed you in. As soon as you entered, you saw the 7 fairies who were picking peaches, fixed in place, unmoving. You exclaimed in surprise, what is this for? Sun Wukong chuckled and said, that old Nine Heavens fellow did not invite my old son to the Pandao banquet, so I'll make sure no immortal gets to eat peaches. You did not secretly eat them yourself, did you? No, a red journey to the west. Sun Wukong said smugly. That's good. You breathed a sigh of relief. Although Sun Wukong always had a playful smile, you still saw a hint of loneliness in his eyes. After all, the monkey loved being the center of attention. And the Pandao banquet only happens once every 1,000 years. Being able to attend it was undoubtedly a symbol of honor and status. It was false to say the monkey did not yearn for it. In the world of Journey to the West, he caused a great disturbance in the heavenly palace precisely because he was not invited. Although he endured it now, it was ultimately a regret. Since you were leaving the Nine Heavens immortal court anyway, you decided to let your good brother make up for his regret. You immediately had the monkey transform into your likeness and go to attend the Pandao banquet. Sun Wukong is skilled in the 72 transformations. Even if the Nine Heavens immortal king did not carefully distinguish, it would be difficult to tell the real from the fake. Sun Wukong was greatly moved, praising you as the best brother Heidi ever had. Afterward, he went to attend the Pandao banquet with a joyful expression. As for you, you transformed into Sun Wukong's appearance and remained in the peach orchard. You thought about lifting the immobilization spell on the 7 fairies. But then you had a change of heart. You had not yet tasted the Pandao from this peach orchard, renowned throughout Mozang heaven. It would not be too late to pick a few to try before releasing them. Anyway, this peach orchard had tens of thousands of peach trees and millions of Pandao. Even if a few were missing, it would not be discovered at all. These pandao were indeed sweet and delicious. You could not stop eating them once you started. It was not until you had eaten a pile of peach pits that you inwardly cursed, this is bad. You had inadvertently denuded over a dozen peach trees, and now it would be hard to conceal. Seeing that it could not be hidden anyway, you simply took out your Chenkin bag, intending to pick more to let your brothers in Reincarnation Heavenly Palace have a taste. However, with hundreds of millions of brothers in Reincarnation Heavenly Palace, these millions of pandao would not be enough to share. So you simply uprooted the peach trees. That way, peaches would grow more peaches in the future, and everyone would have something to eat. After collecting all the peach trees, you left the peach orchard guiltily. The monkey, currently in your likeness, should be very safe, right? On your way out, you also encountered a team transporting imperial wine for the pandao banquet. These wines were all ambrosial nectar. A mortal drinking a sip could achieve immortal ascension on the spot. An immortal drinking a sip could break through a minor realm. You certainly would not let such good things pass by. You directly cast an immobilization spell on everyone and stole the imperial wine. After stealing the imperial wine, you saw many immortal palaces along the way, unattended because their owners had gone to the pandao banquet. How could this be allowed? What if they were robbed? You descended from the clouds and, out of kindness, helped them collect their treasures. Many palaces were also treasures, so you simply took the palaces along with them. Wandering around, you unknowingly arrived at Ducey's palace. Ducey's palace had two young boys, whom you knocked out with one punch each. You really did not mean to hit them. You just thought the golden horn and silver horn on their heads were a bit cute and wanted to touch them. Who knew, they just fainted on their own. Boys guarding the house are indeed unreliable. Since the two of them had fallen asleep, all the medicinal pills in the house certainly could not be left like that. You kindly helped the two collect them. To your pleasant surprise, you also discovered a furnace of 9 revolutions golden core, which could help a quasi-immortal king break through to immortal king. Was it prepared for the monkey? You and the monkey are brothers. What his is yours, so you did not need to be polite and took the bagua furnace along with it. When the two boys woke up and saw the bare Ducey's palace, they were on the verge of tears. All of this was done by that damned stable keeper. Hurry and go report him to the 9 heavens immortal king. The two boys flew towards Lingxiao Palace. When the two arrived, Lingxiao Palace was already densely packed with people kneeling, all there to report grievances. The 7 fairies, the Imperial Wine Team, the disciple of the Barefoot Immortal, and even people from the Judicial Divine Hall were all kneeling there, saying they had been robbed by Sun Wukong. Among the onlookers, Sun Wukong, in your likeness, looked utterly bewildered. This is not right, is it? Is not he right here? How could he be robbing everywhere? As for whether it could have been you who robbed, he thought it was impossible. You had earnestly advised him several times not to cause a ruckus in the heavenly palace, so how could you cause a ruckus yourself? Sun Wukong, being AAAC cubed C, spiritual stone monkey formed from a divine stone that mended the heavens, was exceptionally intelligent. Recalling the plot from Journey to the West, he instantly understood what was going on. The 9 heavens immortal king, for the sake of the journey to the West, actually used such despicable methods through his subordinates to falsely accuse him. That old 9 heavens fellow is truly shameless to the extreme. At this moment, the monkey thought of you, who were still in the peach orchard, and secretly thought, this is bad. And now you were still disguised as him, guarding the peach orchard for him. If that old 9 heavens fellow mistook you for him and captured you, wouldn't he have betrayed his brother? Sun Wukong quietly left the crowd, returned to the peach orchard with a somersault, and revealed his original form. He saw that the peach orchard was full of pits and hollows, not a single peach tree in sight, and you were also nowhere to be found. Oh no, could that old 9 heavens fellow have captured my brother? Sun Wukong was burning with anxiety and was about to go confront the Nine Heavens Immortal King when he saw Yang Jian arrive with 100,000 immortal soldiers and generals, surrounding him completely. 416. The Scapegoat and the Great Sage of Settling Accounts. You are the victim. Yang Jian said coldly, You mischievous monkey, you have committed a monstrous crime. Why do you not quickly surrender? You shameless bunch, quickly release my brother. Sun Wukong pulled out his wish-fulfilling golden sea-registered rod and immediately fought with Yang Jian. Yang Jian's comprehension ability was already on par with Sun Wukong's, and with the help of so many immortal soldiers and immortal generals, he quickly captured Sun Wukong and escorted him to the Lingxiao Palace. Nine Heavens Immortal King said with a serious face, mischievous monkey, do you know your crime? Sun Wukong shouted, that's right, I, your old son, did it all. One persona's deeds, one persona's responsibility. Quickly release my brother, Marshal Tianhe. Sun Wukong had completely understood. The Nine Heavens Immortal King was determined to send him on the Western pilgrimage. He was destined to take the blame for this, so he might as well openly accept it and see if he could save Marshal Tianhe. Was Marshal Tianhe also captured? Nine Heavens Immortal King asked Yang Jian. Reporting to your majesty, Marshal Tianhe is nowhere to be found. He is most likely an accomplice of the mischievous monkey, having fled in fear of his crime. You stewed Yang Jian's howling celestial dog for meat, which makes him the person he hates most. Although the person cannot be found, the charge must first be laid against you. Sun Wukong cried out upon hearing this, you are spouting nonsense. My brother is a man of noble character, how could he collude with me? I, your old son, did all of this myself. However, no matter how the monkey shouted, the Nine Heavens Immortal King no longer paid him any attention. Instead, he had the various immortals tally their losses, demanding that the already confessed Sun Wukong hand over everything, one by one. The immortals who had previously been robbed immediately beamed with joy, directly reporting double their losses. There were also some departments, such as the Judicial Divine Hall, where many accounts were destroyed and the losses were difficult to estimate, so naturally, Sun Wukong was also required to compensate them. In any case, with Sun Wukong's rampage, many accounts could now be settled. Sun Wukong trembled with rage after hearing this. These people were truly dumping all their problems onto his head. The Nine Heavens Immortal King told Sun Wukong to quickly hand over the items, but Sun Wukong naturally could not. He hadn't done these things, so even if they searched him inside out, they wouldn't find these items. At this moment, Lord Taishang stepped forward and said that the civil and martial fires of his Bagua furnace could either create elixirs or cause unbearable pain to people. If this monkey was refined in it for a few days, he would surely obediently reveal the whereabouts of the stolen goods. The Nine Heavens Immortal King assented, and then Lord Taishang took the sealed monkey to the Duce's palace. Upon entering the palace, the enormous Bagua furnace was already gone. You monkey, you even stole my Bagua furnace. Lord Taishang tapped Sun Wukong's head 3 times with his whisk. Sun Wukong's eyes darted around. Why did this scene seem so familiar? Then, Lord Taishang took out his backup 4 symbols furnace and put the monkey inside. Let you hit me. Let you hit me. Golden Horn and Silver Horn held their plantain fans, furiously fanning the furnace from the outside, as if intending to roast the monkey to death. Meanwhile, after you finished robbing the treasures of the various immortals in the Immortal Court, you went to the Celestial River Navy Mansion. The 100,000 brothers of the Celestial River Navy have followed you for so many years, it hasn't been easy. Now that you are about to flee, you should still leave them some good things as compensation. You currently have simply too many good things in your possession. As you were troubled about what good things to give your 100,000 brothers, a Navy soldier suddenly shouted, the fugitive is back. Quick, report to your majesty. Upon hearing this, your expression immediately turned cold. You treated them as brothers, but they treated you as a tool to claim credit and rewards, didn't they? There's no need to consider what good things to give them anymore, just give them a painful lesson. You crushed the person who just spoke with a single finger, then robbed all the other Navy brothers before swaggering away. When the powerhouses of the Nine Heavens Immortal Court arrived, they only saw a scene of wailing and crying. Not long after the havoc in heaven, your true body in the Chongsheng world successfully transformed a star into a black hole. Next, it was time to create a nebula. This nebula was at least dozens of solar systems in size, or one could say, a miniature galaxy. The celestial bodies in the universe are infinite and immeasurable. If you were to create them one by one, it would exhaust you to death. Once you create the nebula, you will let it infinitely derive, forming star systems, star domains, and even the entire universe. To accelerate this process, you were constantly enhancing your basic comprehension ability. Your basic comprehension ability was originally comparable to an ordinary immortal king, but after years of consuming many treasures that enhance comprehension ability, it had already increased to the level of a supreme immortal king. Coupled with the amplification of the 18th grade merit Golden Lotus, the Enlightenment Platform, and other items, you were considered top tier even among Emperor Light immortal kings. Even so, you still often felt that your comprehension ability was insufficient. Perhaps when your basic comprehension ability is comparable to an immortal emperor, completing various heavenly Tao tasks will become much easier. The monkey, meanwhile, had been confined in the four symbols furnace. You had him impersonate you, but unexpectedly, he still could not escape. However, he should be temporarily out of danger, so there is no need to worry. Lord Taishanga's furnace might even be his good fortune. 49 days later, a muffled sound suddenly came from the four symbols furnace in the Duce's palace. After 49 days of refinement by the civil and martial divine fires, Sun Wukong's chi not only did not weaken but instead achieved a breakthrough to the immortal king realm. Golden Horn and Silver Horn were greatly astonished. They had been very diligently fanning the flames during this period, so how could such a strange thing happen? At this moment, Yang Jian arrived at the Duce's palace and asked Lord Taishang about his progress. Upon hearing Yang Jian's voice, before Lord Taishang could speak, the four symbols furnace suddenly exploded. A golden-furred monkey leapt out of the flames, his eyes shining with golden light, holding a wish-fulfilling golden sea-registered rod, and swung it towards Yang Jian. Yang Jian was sent flying by a single blow, shocked by how much stronger Sun Wukong had become, and then fled towards the Lingxiao Palace without looking back. Previously, he and the monkey were evenly matched, but now that the monkey had achieved a breakthrough, he could only quickly go and summon reinforcements. If Howling Celestial Dog were here, it would be great, he could even go up and take a blow for him, buying time. Old lord, after I, your old son, dismantle the Lingxiao Palace and rescue my brother, I will come back to thank you. Sun Wukong bowed to Lord Taishang, then chased after Yang Jian. Great master, why is he thanking you? Golden Horn and Silver Horn were puzzled. Lord Taishang looked at the monkey's retreating figure and smiled meaningfully. Heaven's secrets must not be revealed. The monkey was extraordinarily talented and originally possessed the strength to fight beyond his cultivation level. After achieving a breakthrough to an ordinary immortal king, he was even capable of rivaling a supreme immortal king. The four sovereigns of the immortal court were in seclusion, and the 9 heavens immortal king was out visiting friends. The monkey was practically invincible in the 9 heavens immortal court at this time. He broke through all obstacles, repelled 100,000 immortal soldiers, and quickly reached the Lingxiao Palace. The many immortal officials in the Lingxiao Palace were so frightened that they trembled, quickly telling Yang Jian to go to Little Western Heaven to invite the Buddha. The Western Paradise Buddha was the second Emperor Light Immortal King of Mozang Heaven. Although he had only achieved a breakthrough a few million years ago, he was fully capable of suppressing this mischievous monkey. Sun Wukong asked the immortal officials in the Lingxiao Palace where his brother, Marshal Tianhe, was imprisoned. Upon learning that you had not been captured, he breathed a sigh of relief. Just as he was about to leave, the Western Paradise Buddha arrived. He suppressed Sun Wukong with a single palm strike. Then, his palm transformed into a stone mountain, suppressing Sun Wukong on the path of the Western pilgrimage. This havoc in heaven had far-reaching consequences. Not only did the various immortals not get back their lost items, but they were also beaten up by the monkey again. The 9 heavens immortal king also did not compensate them. After all, karma, this thing, was issued by the 9 heavens immortal court itself. They could have as much as they wanted. But the treasures lost by the immortals were real. If they truly had to compensate, the treasury of the 9 heavens immortal court would be emptied. Besides this, the 9 heavens immortal court was still issuing a bounty for your capture. Although there was no evidence to prove that you were Sun Wukong's accomplice, your act of looting the Celestial River Navy was a solid fact. Even robbing your own subordinates, the methods and actions were outrageous. Of course, they only saw you robbing but selectively ignored that someone wanted to claim a reward using you. In the entire incident, you were the victim. They were all going to claim a reward using you. Wouldn't it be inappropriate if you didn't rob them? 417. Create a galaxy, don't be afraid of him and me. The prayer of Hu to Immortal King. Time flew by, and 2 years passed in a flash. Your Tao body has already enlightened all immortal lords and supreme immortals among your other selves. As for the 5 immortal kings, you didn't touch the Emperor Light Immortal King, but the remaining 3 ordinary immortal kings and 1 supreme immortal king were captured by you and thrown into the Chongsheng world, then into the investiture of the gods. Immortal kings are difficult to enlighten in a short time, so you first use the investiture of the gods to control these 4 people. You will enlighten them when your strength further improves. Aside from the progress with your other selves, you have also created a nebula in your cultivation. Next, you decided to use it to evolve a galaxy. Of course, you couldn't be a hands-off boss in this process, otherwise, the speed would be unimaginably slow. At the current evolution speed, you estimate that it will take 5 or 6 years to form a galaxy the size of the Milky Way. By then, the creation of the galaxy stage will be complete. After that, you will use galaxies to evolve star domains. During this process, your application of the 10,000 laws rule also progressed at an astonishing speed. Given the same piece of iron, some people can only use it to hit others, some can forge it into weapons, and others can produce firearms, cannons, and even more complex things. Before creation, your use of the 10,000 laws rule was like hitting people with an iron block, but now you can forge various weapons with it. If you create a complete universe, that would be a further step, like firearms and cannons, with even more astonishing power. Although this immortal domain heavenly Tao doesn't act like a human, it is indeed skilled at unearthing your potential. Considering how much it has troubled you, when you suppress it in the future, just give it a quick end. Time flew by, and another 5 years passed. The nebula successfully evolved into a galaxy, which then served as the basis for the evolution of a star domain. Any star domain is tens of billions of light years across, and you estimate this process will take about 7 to 10 years. After evolving the star domain, you will then evolve the universe. You estimate that you have hope of breaking through to the immortal Lord 4th realm of the creation stagia within 30 years. The monkey is still suppressed under the 5 Fingers Mountain, and his identity is extremely crucial, so he will definitely receive attention from the 9 Heavens Immortal King and the Western Paradise Buddha, these 2 Emperor Light Immortal Kings. You will see if there is any hope of rescuing the monkey after breaking through to the creation stage. On the other side, over these years, your Tao body has enlightened over 10 million of your other selves. These people have basically all been absorbed into the reincarnation heavenly palace. Your other selves are also your good brothers, so they should be treated equally. Moreover, the reincarnation heavenly palace has vast resources, plus the golden finger you provided, making it the most suitable place for your other selves to grow. These 10 million other selves are basically the strongest among your other selves, and the speed of enlightenment will only accelerate in the future. Now, you no longer engage in targeted cultivation, it's entirely a jehu raising method. Whoever among your other selves ranks in the top 1000 will receive your resource allocation first. Furthermore, you also plan to enlighten all 170 million plus other selves before the strongest other self in the 7th heaven enlightens 999 other selves. By then, let's see how he can break through to Immortal Emperor. This can be considered as you saving yourself through a roundabout way. In addition, the reincarnation seals of the reincarnation heavenly palace are also being vigorously forged. Currently, 12 acquired creation spirit treasure level reincarnation seals have been created, which can be integrated into the grand reincarnation system to replace the Tao body in providing cross-realm teleportation for reincarnators. It can be said that all the primal chaos purple chi produced by the Hongmeng Tao Palace over these years has been fed to these reincarnation seals. However, with the increasing number of reincarnators and the growing number of worlds being conquered, even 12 reincarnation seals are still not enough. You are continuously manufacturing new reincarnation seals. On this day, as your Tao body integrated the 13th reincarnation seal into the grand reincarnation system. Suddenly, waves of prayers came from within the grand reincarnation system. Great existence, please descend upon my world, save the people, and relieve the suffering of all living beings. You glanced at the location of the light spot, it was actually in Mozang heaven. Only the How to Immortal King in Mozang heaven has completely comprehended the reincarnation rule. Could it be her praying to you? But isn't she a supreme immortal king? Why would she pray to an immortal lord like you? Within the grand reincarnation system, large and small light spots are scattered like stars. Each light spot represents a living being who has comprehended the reincarnation rule. The size of the light spot, in turn, represents their attainment in the Tao of reincarnation. Your 10,000 laws rule encompasses the reincarnation rule, and has undergone 3 transformations. Furthermore, during the process of creating the reincarnation heavenly palace and the universe, your attainment in the reincarnation rule rapidly improved, reaching an almost pinnacle state. This caused your light spot to be as dazzling as the sun within the grand reincarnation system, allowing you to rank among the top 50 existences. The How to Immortal King must have misunderstood, thinking you were an old monster at the Immortal Emperor or Immortal Venerable realm. Everything in Mozang heaven has been normal recently, and no world-ending disaster has occurred, so why would the How to Immortal King pray for you to save the people? This doesn't make sense. Could it be that the prayer wasn't sent by her, but by a prodigy who comprehended the reincarnation rule? You felt suspicious and responded, "Who are you? Why do you seek me?" The light spot that emitted the prayer replied with surprise, "This humble one is How to Immortal King of Mozang heaven." It really was her. You grew even more curious as to why she would make such a move. The How to Immortal King then explained the reason. She manages the reincarnation system of Mozang heaven and has discovered a large number of degraded souls in the past 1,000 years. The so-called degraded refers to souls whose 3 ethereal souls and 7 corporeal spirits are incomplete. Even if they accumulated immeasurable karma in their previous life, they can only enter the animal realm, hungry ghost realm, or hell realm, and cannot enter the heavenly realm, human realm, or asura realm. Even if they forcibly open a back door, after reincarnation, they can only become mentally deficient beings. Such souls used to appear only occasionally, but in the past 1,000 years, they have become increasingly common, and basically originate from beings who died in Little Western Heaven. The How to Immortal King had already reported this matter to the 9 Heavens Immortal King, but the 9 Heavens Immortal King told her to ignore it. Afterward, the How to Immortal King also spoke to the high-ranking officials of Little Western Heaven, hoping they would find the source. Unexpectedly, Little Western Heaven intensified their actions, sending out Saitagarbha Bodhisattva, claiming to help her manage these degraded souls, but in reality they were encroaching upon her reincarnation authority. Little Western Heaven definitely had problems, but the How to Immortal King didn't want to completely fall out with them, so she had been yielding and enduring. What truly made the How to Immortal King decide to seek help was learning from a soul named Jin Chanzi that Little Western Heaven was collaborating with the 9 Heavens Immortal Court on a plan to spread Buddhist scriptures to the West. 418. Reward a Wu Tian demon ancestor. Jin Chanzi's memory, the strange things in the West. The expansion of Buddhist influence will lead to an increasing number of degraded divine souls, and the entire Mozang heaven will gradually become a living hell. Therefore, How to Immortal King, through the reincarnation system, begged you, the great existence closest to her, to descend upon Mozang heaven and save the common people. You were astonished, not expecting such a thing. You had always thought that the eastward spread of Buddhism was to strengthen the Buddhist sect's power. Now it seems there are deeper, unknown reasons behind it. The 9 Heavens Immortal Court must also be involved in this matter. What do these 2 forces want to do? Do they want to create a dark myth of Wukong? You said to How to Immortal King, "I have my own plans for this matter, you need not worry excessively." Upon hearing this, How to Immortal King felt a little relieved and, after thanking you, the great existence, became still. Mozang heaven still holds several innate spiritual chi and fortune-creating wonders that are quite valuable to you. For example, the 5 lotus pedestals you previously acquired, including the merit golden lotus, were formed from the lotus seeds of the 24-grade myriad transformation azure lotus of Little Western Heaven. This myriad transformation azure lotus can also enhance comprehension ability, with an effect no weaker than, and perhaps even stronger than, the 18-grade merit golden lotus. There is also the peerlessly destructive sword of annihilation in the hands of 9 Heavens Immortal, and the mixed yuan golden dipper in the hands of purple subtlety Immortal King, which can store all treasures and reduce a person's cultivation. The former is an innate wonder, and the latter 2 are innate spirit treasures. You currently only possess the Hongmeng Dao Palace, the Investiture of the Gods, and the Battle Heaven Axe, these 3 innate items. Acquiring these 3 innate items from Mozang Heaven would elevate your overall strength to another level. Furthermore, Little Western Heaven and 9 Heavens Immortal Court daring to scheme against you inherently leads to their demise. Originally, you planned to settle accounts after increasing your strength, but since Little Western Heaven is acting strangely, you will reward them with a Wu Tian demon ancestor first. The Wu Tian demon ancestor devours Buddha power to strengthen himself, making him precisely the bane of those bald monks in Little Western Heaven. The Wu Tian demon ancestor is currently still suppressed under Mount Shutuo in the Ten Directions land. Although you previously took the merit golden lotus that suppressed him and the world-destroying black lotus from his body, you did not destroy the seal array, so Wu Tian cannot escape for a while. However, you no longer need to act personally, simply issuing a task to a few Supreme Immortal Realm reincarnators can easily free Wu Tian and absorb him into the Reincarnation Heavenly Palace. As for the Western sect in the Ten Directions land, it will naturally become Wu Tian's nourishment. Considering that this Western sect is a legacy left by Mo Zhang Heaven's Little Western Heaven, you conveniently issued Wu Tian a main quest called Path of Vengeance, instructing him to complete his revenge against Little Western Heaven within 100 years, or be annihilated if he fails. After reading the information about Little Western Heaven in the Reincarnation Heavenly Palace, Wu Tian was bewildered. He is only a supreme immortal now, and Little Western Heaven has Emperor Light Immortal King. Is it not overestimating him too much to seek revenge within 100 years? However, tasks issued by the Six Paths of Reincarnation Master cannot be refused. Wu Tian could only bite the bullet and first work on increasing his strength. Fortunately, the Reincarnation Heavenly Palace not only lacks no resources but also has a large number of Buddhist cultivation worlds, so he still has a glimmer of hope to complete this task. On the other side, your Dao body also found the reincarnation of Jin Chanzi in Mo Zhang Heaven. Jin Chanzi was once the second disciple of the Western Paradise Buddha, banished to the mortal realm for his disrespect towards Buddhist teachings. You felt that the reason, disrespect towards Buddhist teachings, was a bit far-fetched. It was most likely an excuse the Western Paradise Buddha casually found after choosing him as the scripture seeker. The reason you sought him was, firstly, to obtain more secrets about Little Western Heaven from him, and secondly, to send his true spirit into the investiture of the gods, using him as a chess piece to disrupt the journey to the west. When you found Jin Chanzi, it was his third reincarnation after being banished to the mortal realm. The Buddha had also dispatched the 5 directional unveilers to constantly monitor his movements. With your strength, the 5 directional unveilers naturally could not detect you. You quietly performed a soul search on Jin Chanzi, who had not yet awakened his past life memories. You discovered that his divine soul contained a restriction placed by the Western Paradise Buddha. Forcibly searching his soul would alert the Western Paradise Buddha. You used one infinite enlightenment to break the restriction. Subsequently, in Jin Chanzi's memory, you witnessed an astonishing scene. It was the day the Buddha preached 1,000 years ago, with 3,000 ancient Buddhas seated on lotus pedestals, listening to the Buddha expound on Buddhist teachings. Midway through his sermon, the Buddha suddenly showed a look of alarm and looked up at the sky. Jin Chanzi also looked up and saw a giant, pale human face descending from the sky, engulfing all the ancient Buddhas within it. Beneath the pale human face, all the ancient Buddhas showed expressions of pain, their bodies beginning to rot and stink. Soon, corpses lay everywhere on the ground. And the Western Paradise Buddha, who was an Emperor Light Immortal King, merely sat pale in place, murmuring something, offering no rescue. Jin Chanzi, before his death, desperately cried out, "World-honored one," before falling into darkness. After an unknown period, when he woke up with a startled cry, he found that everything just now was merely a dream, and all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas were looking at him because of his cry. As the Buddha's second disciple, he had actually fallen asleep during the Buddha's sermon, so the Buddha punished him by sending him to the mortal realm to temper his Buddhist heart. However, before his reincarnation, the Buddha informed him of the plan for the eastward spread of Buddhism, which indirectly led to How to Immortal King seeking your help. In his memory, Jin Chanzi only told How to Immortal King that Buddhism was about to spread eastward, but he did not tell her about that strange dream. Because even to this day, Jin Chanzi only considered it a dream and did not take it seriously. But with your powerful mental will, you discovered that it was not a dream. At least, that pale human face was a real existence, giving you a sense of power, strangeness, and evil. This is something dreams do not possess. Then how was it that Jin Chanzi later saw all the Buddhas safe and sound? Connecting this to How to Immortal King's statement that cases of incomplete divine souls in Little Western Heaven have increased in the past 1,000 years, you felt that this matter might be greatly related to Jin Chanzi's strange experience. That pale human face, even through memory, sent shivers down your spine, Its strength is probably far beyond that of an ordinary emperor like Immortal King. If you don't investigate, your heart will not be at ease. Of course, you will not go personally. Let the brothers go first. Your reincarnation army is already eager. You dispatched 10 reincarnation squads, each consisting of 5 to 10 people, to Little Western Heaven to gather intelligence first. The mission name would be Strange Happenings in the Western Heaven. These 10 reincarnation squads entered the Little Western Heaven territory from different locations. 9 of the squads temporarily found no abnormalities. The 10th squad, however, passed through a vast desert and saw abandoned temples standing on the grassland at the end of the desert. The temples stretched for millions of miles, each as majestic as a mountain, exuding an awe-inspiring presence. The reincarnation squad entered the nearest temple and saw many dark red, still fresh bloodstains on the ground of the abandoned temple. 419. Create the universe, the 4th level of the Immortal Lord. The steps of the unity of the way, the depths of the ancient temple. The bloodstains seeped out from the Grand Hall, and several reincarnators cautiously approached the outside of the Grand Hall, only to see a completely rotted Buddha inside, its back to the crowd, sitting cross-legged. Seemingly hearing their footsteps, the Buddha slowly turned its body, stretched its face, and smiled at everyone while holding a flower. The reincarnators immediately blacked out and all died. You saw this scene and marked this place as the Great Desert Ancient Temple, leading the other 9 reincarnator teams, who had found nothing, here for exploration. Before long, these 9 teams were completely wiped out. Your brothers were not strong enough, and you felt helpless. They only lost their lives, but you lost important information. There was no time to mourn for your fallen brothers, you immediately called in some stronger brothers. You were determined to conquer this ancient temple. However, this rotted Buddha was indeed quite powerful. After 4 or 5 complete wipeouts, the reincarnators finally determined that its realm was Immortal Lord 5th stage. This was just the first temple. There were still tens of thousands of miles of temples stretching behind, and who knew how many rotted Buddhas there would be. Of course, some temples might be empty. But wanting to completely clear this area was ultimately not an easy task. Behind the ancient temple, you also saw resentment soaring into the sky, dyeing the sky black. That place might hold a great terror. You wondered if it was related to the paleface in Jin Chanzi's mind. In any case, the paleface's strength far surpassed that of an ordinary emperor like Immortal King, and you dared not confront it directly, so you decided to let the reincarnators slowly explore it first. Time flew, and another 7 years passed in a blink of an eye. The galaxy finally evolved into a star domain spanning billions of light years. Now, you were only one step away from creating the universe. And the Great Desert Ancient Temple in Little Western Heaven had also been mostly explored by the reincarnators. During this process, dozens of Immortal Lord Realm and hundreds of Supreme Immortal Realm Ancient Buddha monsters were conquered. All of these ancient Buddhas had rotting bodies, just like the situation when the paleface appeared. And after investigation by the reincarnators, all the Immortal Lords and Supreme Immortals in these ancient temples were Buddhist cultivators who had died in the history of Little Western Heaven. Especially some Buddhist cultivators whose bodies were completely gone when they died. Why would they appear here? If they went further in, would they encounter the immortal kings who had fallen in the history of Little Western Heaven? Little Western Heaven has a history of 7 billion years since its creation, but not many immortal kings have fallen, only the 3 ancient Buddhas, Fuai, Fazhang, and Zhenchen. Among them, Fuai and Fazhang were both ordinary immortal kings when they died, only Zhenchen was a supreme immortal king. The Tao lineage left by Zhenchen immortal king still holds considerable fame in Little Western Heaven to this day. Whether they would truly encounter these 3 immortal kings still depended on further exploration by the reincarnators. As for Wu Tian demon ancestor, after devouring the Buddha power of 4 or 5 Buddhist cultivation worlds the size of 10 directions land, he finally achieved a breakthrough to Immortal Lord. However, his breakthrough was not a breakthrough through a legitimate realm, but rather through the buried Buddha demonic technique exchanged from the reincarnation heavenly palace. This was a demonic technique you specifically tailored for him. He only needed to continuously devour Buddha power, and his power could grow infinitely until it reached the realm of Emperor Light Immortal King, at which point it could no longer advance. In addition, because this process would greatly consume his divine soul origin, he lost his ability to live forever, and his lifespan was only about 1,000 years. Of course, you would definitely not mark these negative effects. You only wanted Wu Tian to become the sharpest blade in your hand. Even if he shone brightly for a moment, he would have no regrets dying for it. Time flew by, and another 10 years passed. The universe you created was finally completely formed. You passed the Heavenly Tao test and ascended the creation stage. You achieved a breakthrough to Immortal Lord 4th stage. Your strength greatly increased. You possessed the strength of a quasi-emperor light immortal king. If you used the Battle Heaven Axe, you could even exchange a few blows with an emperor light immortal king. As long as you achieved one more breakthrough, you believed you would definitely be no weaker than the Western Paradise Buddha. After the breakthrough, your realm was incredibly stable, and you immediately began to sense the content of the Immortal Lord 5th Stagia, the Tao Fusion Stage Test. Tao Fusion, that is, integrating with the Heavenly Tao. Most Immortal Lords' test missions were to find an immortal domain dimension that could give birth to an Immortal Lord and integrate with its Heavenly Tao. After Tao Fusion, within that dimension, the Immortal Lord's strength could soar 5 or 6 times. But it was limited to that dimension. In places like 10 Directions Land and Yuan Jing Heaven, there were basically no Immortal Lords who performed Tao Fusion. These 2 dimensions were too barren. Even if one performed Tao Fusion, it would not be of much use. As long as Immortal Lords had a choice, they would choose a stronger dimensional world. After Tao Fusion, as strength increased, one could better plunder resources. Of course, Tao Fusion was not without its drawbacks. If the dimension where the Heavenly Tao and Immortal Lord integrated with was destroyed and the Heavenly Tao perished, the person who performed Tao Fusion would also be injured and their strength damaged. Therefore, some Immortal Lords, to avoid limitations, would leave the Tao after Tao Fusion. However, in doing so, the Tao Fusion stage ascended by the Immortal Lord would shatter, greatly increasing the difficulty of achieving a breakthrough to Immortal King through the Gate of Myriad Wonders. Unless absolutely necessary, very few people would do this. You actually did not want to be limited by the Heavenly Tao. You decided to first see what kind of mission the Immortal Domain Heavenly Tao would give you, and then adapt accordingly. Soon, the test mission came down. The Immortal Domain Heavenly Tao actually wanted you to perform Tao Fusion with the World Domain Celestial Tao. The Chaos Realm was a vaster place than the Immortal Domain. The Immortal Domain was merely the strongest plane discovered so far within the Chaos Realm. You had originally thought the Immortal Domain Heavenly Tao would have you perform Tao Fusion with the Immortal Domain, but you didn't expect it to be the next higher level, the Chaos Realm. But was there a Heavenly Tao in the Chaos Realm? Why had you never heard of it? Of course, it was also possible that your current strength was too low to have come into contact with it. If it weren't for the Ascension Ladder, you would have found it difficult to even contact the Immortal Domain Heavenly Tao. Performing Tao Fusion with the World Domain Celestial Tao, this seemed to have no precedent, right? You hadn't even heard of anyone performing Tao Fusion with the Immortal Domain. However, you thought about the several tests you had faced since your breakthrough to Immortal Lord, which one had a precedent. To perform Tao Fusion, one must first come into contact with it. First, find the World Domain Celestial Tao. This was not something that could be done overnight. With your greatly increased strength, you now had more confidence and decided to first resolve the matter of the Great Desert Ancient Temple. This time, you specifically dispatched a Tao body to directly penetrate the deepest part of the ancient temple. There, you saw piles of white bones, and 3 powerful beings were devouring large amounts of flesh and divine souls of Buddhist believers. It was precisely the 3 immortal kings you had previously predicted, Zhenchen, Fazhang, and Fuai. 420. The pale face reappeared, the past body. Meet Taishang Laojun, the secret of the prehistoric. However, these 3 immortal kings, though resurrected, had clearly lost their minds and turned into flesh-eating, decaying monsters. You intended to capture the 3 of them, but a pale human face suddenly appeared in the sky. Your Tao body began to rot, showing a tendency to turn into a monster as well. Your main body, which had been constantly monitoring the situation, promptly withdrew the 1 Qi transforming into 3 purities technique, saving your Tao body from harm. The appearance of the pale human face was beyond your expectation. It seemed Jin Chanzi's dream was indeed real. A bigger question arose: were the many Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and Arhats of Little Western Heaven still alive? Among them, what role did Western Paradise Buddha play? Subsequently, your Tao body went to Little Western Heaven again and took away Sariputra, the Buddha's 3rd disciple, who was beside Jin Chanzi and whose body Jin Chanzi watched decay. You studied him for several days and found nothing abnormal about his body, everything was the same as a living person. You then had a sudden idea and sent Sariputra to the Great Desert Ancient Temple. As soon as Sariputra entered the temple's range, his body began to rapidly decay, and he lost his sanity. When you kicked Sariputra out of the temple's range, he returned to normal. Afterward, you captured some ordinary Buddhist believers and sent them in, finding that their bodies did not decay. Only the Buddhist masters of Little Western Heaven, especially those who listened to the Buddha's Dharma 8,000 years ago, would experience such a situation. After more than half a month of research, you came to a conclusion. That is, many Buddhist masters were actually already dead, they were merely covered by a layer of special disguise, temporarily living. You also found this layer of disguise. It was the Emperor Light Immortal King's power of time reversal. It was this power of time that had been constantly reversing their bodies to before they died. In other words, they were using their past bodies. And once they entered the temple's range, this power of time would dissipate, and their original bodies would appear. Although many did not know the inside story and thought they were alive, over time, they would inevitably discover clues. Because in this situation, they could not increase their strength. Could it be that the Buddhist sect's urgency to expand its influence was due to this reason? You believed that while this reason existed, it should not be the most important one. After all, from Jin Chanzi's memories, it could be seen that Western Paradise Buddha did not value the Buddhist legacy as much as imagined, otherwise, he would not have watched the Buddhas walk towards death. You also did not know the relationship between Western Paradise Buddha and the pale human face. Could Western Paradise Buddha have also been killed by the pale human face? If that were true, then who was responsible for the power of time on the Buddhas? You felt that this matter should still be handled by Wu Tian Demon Ancestor. Wu Tian Demon Ancestor's current strength had reached around Immortal Lord 7th tier, and it wouldn't be long before he could rival an Immortal King. Of course, if you wanted him to be faster, you could also use the power of faith accumulated by the Reincarnation Heavenly Palace over the years to bestow upon him the title of Peerless Immortal King. However, the power of faith was extremely precious, and you couldn't possibly use it on Wu Tian. Next, you planned to rescue Sun Wukong. Little Western Heaven was now extremely dangerous for the monkey. If he met with an accident, you would lose a good brother. With your current strength, rescuing Sun Wukong was not difficult. But to be safe, you first went to create some trouble for the Nine Heavens Immortal Court and Little Western Heaven, making the Nine Heavens Immortal King and Western Paradise Buddha, these two Emperor Light Immortal King incarnations, too busy to act, and then you struck, splitting the Five Fingers Mountain with an axe. Ha ha ha, this old sun is finally out. Sun Wukong somersaulted a few times, shouting excitedly. You told him to quickly follow you. You sent Sun Wukong to a dimensional world in dangerous shore heaven, and by the way, you also packed up and sent his monkey descendants. Sun Wukong saw your greatly increased strength and asked in confusion, why don't we, brothers, join forces to overthrow the Nine Heavens Immortal Court and Little Western Heaven? Why do we have to hide instead? You said the time was not yet ripe and told him to hide safely and not cause trouble, otherwise, you wouldn't bother to save him. Before parting, Sun Wukong asked you to thank Lord Taishang on his behalf, saying that if it weren't for Lord Taishang, he would not have been able to break through to Immortal King so quickly. You agreed. In fact, you were also very curious about Lord Taishang. In the primordial domain, Lord Taishang was an incarnation of the Taoist Heavenly Good Old Master. And in the Little Yuan realm of the lower realm's blood character domain, there was also an old master who disappeared after entering the Immortal Gate thousands of years ago. You had always suspected a connection between the two, so this was a good opportunity to go and test him. Your Tao body entered Mozang Heaven again. You had expected Mozang Heaven to be in an uproar because of Sun Wukong's rescue, but unexpectedly, it was as calm as usual and there was even no news of Sun Wukong's escape spreading. You looked at the location of the Five Fingers Mountain from afar, only to see that the Five Fingers Mountain had returned to its original state, and Sun Wukong was still suppressed there. If you hadn't used your eye of illusory breaking to see that this, Sun Wukong, had 6 ears, you would have truly thought that the previous rescue was an illusion. Sun Wukong ran away, and you used the 6-eared macaque to replace him, right? You secretly smiled to yourself, a fake is always a fake. The 6-eared macaque was not formed from the divine stone of mending heaven and could not completely replace Sun Wukong to complete the Buddhist luck. However, since Little Western Heaven was willing to deceive itself, you were happy to watch the show. You arrived at the Two-Sita Palace. Lord Taishang had already dismissed his attendants and prepared a pot of hot tea, seemingly waiting for you. You were quite surprised by this and first thanked Lord Taisheng on behalf of Sun Wukong, then asked him what his relationship was with the old master of the primordial domain. Lord Taisheng smiled and said, "It's the relationship you're thinking of." He continued, "Back then, the primordial domain was devastated by the great battle between two immortal venerables, turning into a dead zone and becoming the current emperor ruins. Under the great battle, the heavenly gods of the primordial domain were also almost completely annihilated, but the 6 saints of Immortal Emperor realm, the 3 pure ones, Nuwa, and the 2 western saints, did not perish in the battle. Instead, they collected a large number of remnant souls and allowed them to reincarnation into the 9 heavens and 10 earths. This Mozang heaven is where the most reincarnated heavenly gods from the primordial domain reside." Hearing the word immortal venerable, you curiously asked, who exactly were those 2 immortal venerables? Was one of them old ancestor Hongjun? Lord Taisheng said, "Teacher Hongjun is at the half-step immortal exalted realm and has not yet achieved a breakthrough to immortal venerable. As for the names of those 2 immortal venerables, you must at least have immortal emperor strength to know, otherwise, you will not be able to bear the karma." Upon hearing this, you did not delve further into this question but instead asked if the old master of the blood character domain was also related to him. Lord Taisheng nodded and said that he was also an incarnation of his main body. Then, Lord Taisheng changed the subject and said, "Actually, it's not just me, many powerful beings from the primordial domain, such as Yuanxi, Jian, and Junti, have sent incarnations to the blood character domain." "Do you know why?" You were speechless. Shouldn't he be asking you? You tentatively said, "Could it be related to me?"